I don't know what the fucking note is. Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. Tired of living like a blind man. I'm sick aside without a sense of feeling. And this is how you remind me. This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. This time I'm mistaken for handing you a heart worth breaking. I've been wrong, I've been down, been at the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream out, we're having fun yet. Yeah. No, I don't know this part. Yeah, I think yeah. No, it's not like you didn't know that. I said I love you and I swear I still do. And it must have been so bad, 'cause living with me must have damn near killed you. And this is how you remind me what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. This time I'm mistaken for handing you a heart worth breaking. I've been wrong, I've been down, but to the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream, are we having fun yet? Yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no. Oh, deep part here. We go here. Okay, really feel the Krieger, channel the Krieger. Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. And this is how you remind me. This is how you remind me. This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. This time I'm mistaken for handing you a heart worth breaking. I've been wrong, I've been down, but to the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream, are we having fun yet? Yeah, are we having fun yet? Yeah, are we having fun yet? Yeah, are we having fun yet? Yeah. No. A fucking pox on all of you.
because this craziness, this sickness in this country now is shot through the whole society. You know, people in law enforcement have also succumbed to right-wing extremism and white nationalism. Again, what this points up is how pervasive and vast a problem this is, and we will be dealing with it for a long time.
Well, hey there, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? I got my Joe Biden sunglasses. Life's gonna be good. I'm enjoying. I've only got the one light on for some sexy mood lighting for our. Just got an alarm on my phone to take my pills, which I didn't do before then. So there we go. Yeah, got my mood lighting for the debate tonight. It'll be an interesting presentation. It's quite a it's obviously a few years old. Christopher Hitchens is no longer with us, but really good debate. Stephen Fry is awesome, and it's interesting to hear. And Widdecombe and Archbishop, John there. I can't think of his name, and I probably can't, actually I don't even think I could say his last name if I wanted to. Hi Abby, how you doing, kiddo? It's good to see you. Yeah, we're live here on YouTube as a big smear of text because I don't have 100 subscribers on YouTube, so it's just a big smear of text till I get to 100. Feel free to subscribe. Or I'm on Facebook Live, or I'm on Twitch. Most places I go by Big Ugly Jim. On Twitch, I'm a Big Ugly Jim because there was already a Big Ugly Jim, so now I'm just a Big Ugly Jim. Either way, I'm good with it. I'm comfortable with who I am. It was actually funny. I was on, I spent the day, I was working today, and also making, tortilla soup, while working. And I had, James from the internet playing on my phone the whole day. And I chatted along quite a bit. And at the end of James's stream, he went to Riverboat Jack's stream. And Riverboat Jack did the thing, that a lot of people do where, they felt uncomfortable saying Big Ugly Jim, so I thought that was fun. So it's one of those things, I don't get it. It's a nickname, it doesn't mean much. My kiddo Abby, who I mentioned and said hello to a second ago, got me this shirt for Father's Day, was it? I think it was Father's Day. It's the evolution of man from monkey all the way through to trumpet player. Great shirt. How's folks doing? I see there's a couple people on I think YouTube, and a couple people on Facebook. And because Facebook's algorithm or API is constantly changing, I have to have the chat for Facebook open here because it doesn't amalgamate with the cool chat over here. Whatever. The good news. Was it Christmas? It was Christmas. I'm so bad at time. And I'll tell you, COVID did not help that. COVID did not make me better at time. Because everything just seems to be a blur. But we'll get started with the movie, shall we? Are you guys ready to go? Just give me a heck yes. And we'll get her going. Who am I kidding? I'm just gonna press play no matter what. Where's my window? I gotta close out of that. Oh, I hate this. The part where I'm like confused and shit. I have everything pre-set up and everything's good, and somehow I still manage to constantly be like, I don't know what's happening. All right. So the movie. Like I said, this is a really phenomenal and interesting discussion. And my personal bias, I feel like Hitchens and Fry definitely dominated, but you be the judge. You feel free to poke in your own 2 cents as the conversation goes along and chat.
Hello, welcome from central London. We're just a stone's throw away from the Houses of Parliament in Westminster. We're here in Central Hall for this Intelligence Squared debate on the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. Well, that's a subject that's going to generate a lot of heat, I think, and some light too, I hope. I'm delighted to be chair of this debate. We have a panel which includes some of the most provocative, intelligent and stimulating commentators and practitioners on the subject. Arguing for the motion, the Archbishop of Abuja in Nigeria, John Onaiyekan, the British Conservative MP, Anne Widdecombe. Arguing against the motion, the actor, broadcaster and author Stephen Fry, and the journalist and commentator Christopher Hitchens. Well, our first speaker is John Onaiyekan, His Grace, the Archbishop of Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. And His Grace is one of Africa's best known, most respected commentators of the Church, the Catholic Church. So please make your way to the podium, speak at the microphone.
Friends, I certainly must say I'm grateful to be here, because for me it's more than a matter of debate, because that's what my life is all about. If I didn't believe that the Catholic Church is a force for good, I would not devote my whole life to precisely working in that institution, hoping that I am involved in something that is good for the whole world. You see, for me to be a Catholic is a gift of God. Let me start with the word church, the Catholic Church. Obviously, it means many things to many people, but I think as an Archbishop, I should be in a position to say what it does mean, especially to us Catholics. Yes, the Catholic Church is an institution, and some people say it is perhaps the best organized institution in the world, but that's not really the essence of our church. We should go beyond the institution, and for us, the church is first and foremost a community of believers. And this is a community of believers that is spread all over the world, made up of all kinds of people. And the institution itself, as well as those whom we normally consider church people, people dressed up like me, for example, we are there only because of that huge community of people who are Catholics. I'm stressing this so that when you are asking yourself, is the Catholic Church a force for good in the world, don't look at me, don't look at Benedict XVI, look at the Catholics all over the world. That the church is a force for good in the world seems obviously to me is quite obvious. The question probably we should ask is, what kind of force? There was once an arrogant dictator who asked in disdain, how many battalions has the Pope? Obviously, he completely missed the point. It's not about military force or physical force, but it is about force. It's about the force of a spiritual message, the force of values, which has stood the test of 2,000 years. And not only 2,000 years in time, but has spread its message all over the world among different kinds of people, different races. We must also not forget the sheer weight of the number of Catholics. I have checked the statistics, and we are told that now we have about 1.2 billion Catholics all over the world, out of a population of 6.6 billion, 17.3%. And these are young, these are made up of all categories of people, young and old, women and men, peasant farmers and high-tech professionals, simple citizens, and even heads of states and world leaders. This is the great army that is a great force for good in the world. And whatever they are doing, we consider it as being done largely also as a result of the spirit that guides them. Independent statistics have shown that the Catholic Church is doing far.
I'm just going to interrupt because this take bugs me. A lot of good people, a lot of powerful people are members of the... You just slam that door, buddy. You go ahead, not doing anything.
The wind just fucking it up.
Is it?
Yes.
I'm glad we're having this conversation right now. Yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful people who happen to subscribe to that particular faith, and that doesn't give the church an out for how they behave. Anyways, I'll keep going.
Far more than its numbers and its population would probably suggest. The action of the church is most significant in communities that are reduced to poverty and misery by human neglect and sometimes by hostile environments. Talking of statistics, I spoke recently with the Director General of UNAIDS, which is the United Nations Agency for HIV and AIDS, and he said that 26% of the health institutions in the world directly involved with the treatment of HIV and AIDS are run by the Catholic Church. And please note that it is a well-known policy of our church that whenever we are engaged in social welfare work, it is always given to all without any discrimination, whether you believe or not, irrespective of creed.
Is that
Indeed,
true?
it is an integral part of our faith that our church is made up of saints and sinners. We are all struggling towards that perfection which Jesus asked us all to first follow. Nor am I denying that the Catholic Church has always and everywhere been done excellent things, even sometimes in high levels. But this again only proves that we are in this world. Even the late Pope John Paul II had no difficulty at all in admitting the mistakes that people who claim to be Catholics and working in the name of the church have done in the past, and even apologized. And such gestures of apology is very rare in our world today. Let me conclude by drawing your attention to one particular aspect of my faith which I admire greatly. We are very open to dealing and moving and collaborating with others. And I think this is very important for the world of our days. We are talking of the world of today. We need more and more efforts to link hands across all divides so that we can manage to make our planet a better place. A world of justice and peace. Is there still anybody here who still doubts whether the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just gonna say that's like any group. You could have a meeting of the white Nazi party and be like, we feel like we just need to work with other people who are different than us, and we want to, we've all got common goals, and we just want justice. That's all well and good, but maybe actions would be a thing there.
Our next speaker is Christopher Hitchens. He's arguing against the motion. He is a writer, journalist, and commentator, particularly well known for his trenchant and views and very original thinking. So, Christopher Hitchens, let us hear what you have to say. Your time starts now. Please make your way to the podium.
That's their way of saying Christopher Hitchens is a monster.
I'm sorry to have to begin by disagreeing with His Grace. If you're going to be a serious grown-up person and appear to defend the Catholic Church in public in front of an educated and literate audience, you simply have to start by making a great number of heartfelt apologies and requests for contrition and forgiveness. Now, you might ask, you're fully entitled to ask, brothers and sisters, who am I to say that? Well, in the Jubilee Millennium year of 2000, the Vatican spokesman, Bishop Piero Marini, said, explaining a whole sermon of apology given by His Holiness the Pope, given the number of sins we've committed in the course of 20 centuries, reference to them must necessarily be rather summary. Well, I think Bishop Marini had that just about right. I'll have to be summary too. His Holiness on that occasion, it was March the 12th, 2000, if you wish to look it up, begged forgiveness for, among some other things, the Crusades, the Inquisition, the persecution of the Jewish people, injustice towards women, that's half the human race right there, and the forced conversion of indigenous peoples, especially in South America, the African slave trade, the admission that Galileo was right, and for silence during Hitler's final solution, or Shoah. And it doesn't end there. There are smaller but significant, equally significant, avowals of a very bad conscience. These have included regret for the rape and the torture of orphans and other children in church-run schools in almost every country on earth, from Ireland to Australia. These are very serious matters, and they're not to be laughed off by references to the occasional work of Catholic charities. But I draw your attention not just to the apologies, ladies and gentlemen, but to the evasive and euphemistic form that they take. Joseph Ratzinger, the current Pope, considered by some, by Catholics, to be the Vicar of Christ on earth, in his comment, one of the few he's made, on the institutionalization of rape and torture and maltreatment of children in Catholic institutions, he has said, it's a very severe crisis which involves us, he said, in the following: in the need for applying to these victims the most loving pastoral care. Well, I'm sorry. They've already had that. And to say that this is the responsibility laid upon you by the horrific admission that you've already had to make is not accepting responsibility in any adult sense. The same euphemism comes in the term some Christians allowed themselves to be deceived in this way and to act against the gospel. Well, anti-Semitism was preached as an official doctrine of the church until 1964. Do you think that might have something to do with public opinion in Austria and Bavaria and Poland and Lithuania? There'll come a time when the church will issue apologies and explanations and half-baked appeals for forgiveness for things it's still doing. I think that there will be an apology for what happened in Rwanda, the most Catholic country in Africa, where priests and nuns and bishops are on trial for inciting from their pulpits and on the church's radio stations and newspapers the massacre of their brothers and sisters. Staying in Africa, I think it will one day be admitted with shame that it might have been in error to say that AIDS is bad as a disease, very bad, but not quite as bad as condoms are bad, or not as immoral in the same way. I say it in the presence of His Grace, and I say it to His face. The preachings of His church are responsible for the death and suffering and misery of millions of His brother and sister Africans, and He should apologize for it. He should show some shame.
I love how Hitchens spoke. He wasn't always right on all things by any stretch. I don't hold him up as a superhero, but he was so... I guess the word I would use is he was so unapologetic in his straight to the point, like, this is how shit is. And I love that.
For condemning my friend Stephen Fry for his nature, for saying you couldn't be a member of our church. You're born in sin.
Burn.
He's not being condemned for what he does, he's being condemned for what he is. You're a child made in the image of God. Oh, no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman. It's obscene. And it comes from a clutch of hysterical, sinister virgins who've already betrayed their charge in the children of their own church. For shame. For shame. I don't wish any ill on any fellow primate or mammal of mine, so I don't at all look forward to the death of Joseph Ratzinger. I don't. Or any other pope, not really. Except for one tiny reason which I ought to confess and share with you. When he dies, there's quite a long interval till the conclave can meet, and for that whole time, that whole interval, it's a delicious, lucid interlude, there isn't anyone on earth who claims to be infallible. Isn't that nice? All I want to propose in closing is this, that if the human species is to rise to the full height that's demanded by its dignity and by its intelligence, we must all of us move to a state of affairs where that condition is permanent. And I think we should get on with it. Okay, thank you for having me.
Hi, Sugar. I see you there in the chat. I hope you're doing well. You missed the very start with the Archbishop and then Hitchens, but there's more to come. Lots more to come. It's good to see you.
Well, Christopher, thank you very much for all that. Our next speaker is going to have her work cut out because she's speaking in favour of the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good. The Conservative MP and former government minister, Anne Widdecombe.
And I am Canadian.
She's as well known for her religious views as for her politics. If you recall, she left the Church of England in 1992 in a blaze of publicity when it allowed the ordination of women priests. The following year, she converted to Catholicism and has become one of the most vocal and staunchest defenders of the Catholic Church since then. Anne Widdecombe, the floor is yours.
I'm going to again interject. Anne Widdecombe is just like an amazing example of, I don't even know what, like just I don't know if it's self-loathing or what, like the idea that you can be a member of parliament and believe that a woman's voice should be at the highest level, and then the Church of England says, oh, and women can be priests, and you're like, that's it, I'm out. Let's go back to that place where they don't allow women's. I don't understand. Very conservative, very, like, you can just see that, like, she starches her night dress. I don't know, just eerie to me. How old is this? 2009. Oh, and there's definitely so many hit slaps coming. He already dropped the F slur.
If apologies are due tonight, they are due from Christopher Hitchens, who has just run through one of the longest series of misrepresentations of the Catholic Church that I have heard in a long time.
He literally, because I know the two of you just got in here, he literally just like listed the things that were apologized for by, I don't recall who, but another member of the church like a few years before that. And it was a summary list of like, sorry about all the indigenous people, particularly in South America, that we, murderized. Sorry for supporting the Holocaust. Sorry for like our war against women and other things. So yeah, if she's angry at Hitchens, she's really angry at whomever it was in the church that made that speech.
He has said with that certainty which characterizes his utterances that the Catholic Church has had a history of anti-Semitism. Let us just look at the record of the Catholic Church when the Jewish community was under the most serious threat that it has faced in recent centuries. And just look at the role that the Catholic Church played in the last World War. Mr. Hitchens ignores the thousands of Jews who were secreted and rescued in churches and monasteries throughout Europe.
Against the direction of the church in Germany, which was full on replacing the crucifix with the swastika, all of that jibber jabber.
He ignores the 3,000 Jews who, in the course of that conflict, took refuge in the Pope's own summer palace. And coming nearer to our day, of course, Christopher Hitchens is right, and who could possibly dispute with him, that the abuse of children, of innocent children, is one, in fact, it is the worst offence that anybody can commit. Of that, no doubt. But again, he seems to think that the Catholic Church should have had some unique insight, which demonstrably was lacking in society as a whole. Do not
Okay, I have to play this back. I want to make sure that I'm getting this point correct from her.
Palace. And coming nearer to our day, of course, Christopher Hitchens is right, and who could possibly dispute with him, that the abuse of children, of innocent children, is one, in fact, it is the worst offence that anybody can commit. Of that, no doubt. But again, he seems to think that the Catholic Church should have had some unique insight, which demonstrably was lacking in society as a whole. Do not expect the Catholic Church somehow, when that was the state of knowledge at the time.
Everyone was raping children, right? Like, you can't expect the Catholic Church, which wouldn't have any kind of particular, like, superior morality to the general public, to, like, just somehow know that it wasn't okay to rape children?
To have acted in a unique and completely different way. In retrospect, yes, of course. In retrospect, yup.
In retrospect, child rape bad. Yeah, they always attack him ad hominem, then he just dismantles them. Fry's no slouch, definitely. It's explaining to my son that Damien would have been the leftist fallen angel and that he escaped the grip because he saw the hypocrisy. No God, no morality, therefore bad things to children because you don't know God. Yeah, all good points. I love that idea of, like, as a kid, I grew up in the church and I grew up believing in, like, the devil is a bad person, or in my church, it was more the concept of evil, right? They didn't personify the devil too terribly much. But yeah, the devil is knowledge, and knowledge says, hey, wait, this is stupid. Turns out we should have known it was always about not raping children.
In retrospect, it should have done. So should the magistrates. So should the Samaritans. So should the National Council of Civil Liberties. But when we ask whether the Catholic Church is a force for good, let's just try to imagine a world today without, for example, the billions of pounds that are poured into overseas aid by the Catholic Church.
No. Poured into the aid by Catholic people. The church probably does donate some money, I'm sure. But you also have a city made of gold, so, you know, this is like when Bill Gates donates $1 million, everyone's like, oh my God, or Donald Trump, oh my God, he donated his whole salary to charity. Yeah, well, his salary means fucking nothing.
Contributing year on year more
the church
than
collects
any
money and hides
single nation. Imagine the developing world had been left without the input of the medicine and the education that was brought to it by the missions.
And the child rape, and the removal from home. I'm sorry. Are we maybe taking credit where it's not all the way due? Yes, absolutely. You know, it was great that there was medicine and stuff, but also that whole genocide thing, which, you know, it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, you've got medicine. On the other hand, you let Indian kids die in residential schools because you didn't bother giving them health care. I'm just, like, you know, it could go either way.
Imagine the absence of those collections Sunday
The myth
upon
of Mother
Sunday
Teresa, yep.
for famine relief. Imagine the absence of the church in the local community. We play a vital role. And you don't need to be a Catholic to acknowledge that we play that role. What is the church? It is its members. It is the nuns and the monks and the priests and the lay workers and the congregations. It is not just the hierarchy of the church. And I believe that the church to which I belong is a massive, massive force for good. But let us not just keep the debate at that level. I knew somehow that when we were here tonight, we would be discussing child abuse and condoms. They came in the end. I almost thought we were going to get through an entire speech without condoms from Christopher Hitchens, but we got them at the end. But that is not what the Catholic Church is about. It isn't.
It's not what the Catholic Church is about. The Catholic Church is about God. And that I will agree. But, like, the rest of it's important, Anne. Jesus fuck.
Only about the physical relief of the poor. It isn't only about the work it does on earth, but it is the message that it
Every
preaches.
sperm.
And that
I love
message
that.
is one of hope. That message is one of salvation. And it is all very well for some people in an intellectual arrogance to say, we can do without that. But actually, billions of people across the world live by that message of hope and of salvation.
The physical
They
relief of the
try
poor,
to
yep.
live by the commandments and also by the interpretation of those commandments by Christ.
Definitely. So, Sugar, yeah, your point, making people listen to bullshit before nourishment should be illegal. I wish that was true in every sense. Certainly it should be illegal in the religious sense, but I hate going to fucking, work things and I have to listen to how great the company's doing before they let us get drunk and dance. I find it interesting because, like, if this wasn't the Catholic Church they were talking about, if it was hockey, minor league hockey, and they were saying, yes, sure, we have a huge problem with raping children, but what is the message of hockey? It's not child rape. Hockey's not about child rape at all. Hockey's about sportsmanship and teamwork and coming together and physical exercise, and isn't that really what it's all about? Yes. But there's also the child rape.
Yeah, sometimes they fail.
Sometimes they fail.
Sometimes their leaders fail.
Whoopsie doodle, I put my finger in every person that came near me's bum and, raped them and tormented them. Oops-a-doo.
Human beings do fail. But overwhelmingly, I say to you tonight with no apology or whatever, that a world without the Catholic Church would be poorer, would be more hopeless, and would be a worse place in which to live.
Now, something that I think it was I Am Canadian brought up in the chat on Twitch is the idea that, Mother Teresa. Was that you? Yeah, so Mother Teresa, the great, noble, wonderful Catholic Saint Mother Teresa, who was all about alleviating the suffering and being there and giving hope. Only no. In fact, Mother Teresa was all about allowing and encouraging suffering to find godliness, and was all about actually tormenting the poor. So, and would the world be richer without the Catholic Church? Well, that doesn't seem to hold any kind of reasoning, unless, sorry, would it be poorer without the Catholic Church? I guess it depends on what you mean by poorer. If you're talking about financially, well, I don't think the Catholic Church prints money, so that's probably not what they mean. But if a lot less people had been raped, maybe good. A lot less people had been, terrorized with thoughts of eternal damnation. Yeah, that could have been a net positive. It's again, mixed bag. Penn and Teller did an awesome expose. Yes, on Mother Teresa on the bullshit show. That was awesome.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Anne Widdecombe. And our final speaker is against
the man,
the motion,
Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry, a bit of an all-rounder, really. Stephen can turn his hand to many things. Stephen, let's hear your views.
He's become a bit of like a super lib lately from what I've seen, and that sort of hurts my heart, but this is Stephen Fry at his finest.
I genuinely believe that the Catholic Church is not, to put it at its mildest, a force for good in the world. And therefore it is important for me to try and marshal my facts as well I can to explain why I think that. But I want first of all to say that I have no quarrel, no argument, and I wish to express no contempt for individual devout and pious members of that church. It would be impertinent and wrong of me to express any antagonism towards any individual who wishes to find salvation in whatever form they wish to express it. That, to me, is sacrosanct as much as any article of faith is sacrosanct to anyone of any church or any faith in the world. It's very important. It's also very important to me, as it happens, that I have my own beliefs. They are a belief in the Enlightenment. They are a belief in the eternal adventure of trying to discover moral truth in the world. And there is nothing, sadly, that the Catholic Church and its hierarchs likes to do more than to attack the Enlightenment. It did so at the time. Reference was made to Galileo and the fact that he was tortured for trying to explain the Copernican theory of the universe. Just imagine in this square mile how many people were burned for reading the Bible in English. And one of the principal burners and torturers of those who tried to read the Bible in English here in London was Thomas More. Now, that's a long time ago. It's not relevant, except that it was only last century that Thomas More was made a saint, and it was only in the year 2000 that the last pope, the Pole, he made Thomas More the patron saint of politicians. This is a man who put people on the rack for daring to own a Bible in English. He tortured them for owning a Bible in their own language. The idea that the Catholic Church exists to disseminate the word of the Lord is nonsense.
Preach.
It is the only owner of the truth for the billions that it likes to boast about, because those billions are uneducated and poor, as again it likes to boast about. It's perhaps unfair of me.
Sugar, what do you mean by syllabics? I think we've talked about this before. You talk, it says syllabics drive me fucking insane when indigenous people use them and tattoo that shit on themselves. I don't know if I know what you mean by syllabics. Unless you mean like Bible verses. My ex-wife is covered in Bible verse tattoos, and it just always makes me chuckle because she's... I'm not going to finish that thought, but maybe not the most pious. I'm gonna keep playing.
As a gay man, to moan at this enormous institution, which is the largest and...
the written language used to teach the Bible to indigenous people. Okay, yeah, no, I and you've told me that before. I should be smart. Hey, Jim, have you heard the good word? You were born right the first time. I was, according to the Christian faith, like Jesus, I was born white and male. Because there's no other possible scenario that Jesus could be anything but white and male. I don't have as good a beard as him. But you know, my handlebars are pretty cool. Yeah, the written language that they so I didn't know, is that a thing that indigenous people are getting syllabic tattoos? That's kind of eerie and also loathsome.
The most powerful church on earth has over 1 billion, as they like to tell us, members, each one of whom is under strict instructions to believe the dogmas of the church, but may wrestle.
That's an interesting point. So Hitchens says they have over 1 billion members, and Widdecombe was talking about $16 billion a year that is donated. So that would translate into $16 a person, like, unless my math is off.
With them personally, of course. It's hard for me to be told that I'm evil, because I think of myself as someone who's filled with love, whose only purpose in life was to achieve love, and who feels love for so much of nature and the world and for everything else. We certainly don't need the stigmatization, the victimization that leads to the playground bullying when people say you're a disordered, morally evil individual. That's not nice. It isn't nice.
Yeah, Sugar, I definitely agree with the statement that, you know, the residential school system, it worked. You know, a large number of people who are, you know, indigenous people don't have that connection to their culture and their history. And it's a goddamn shame. On top of that, I would say that it should be an embarrassment. They kind of talked about in Hitchens' thing. He mentioned the attacks of global or colonization against the indigenous, and he specifically called out South America, but the world over. Obviously, today we're a little more in the news about the indigenous here in Canada and in the United States. With the residential school program and the 60s sweep. I always screw up which one that is, and the child alerts and our birth alerts and all of that. But you know, the second half of those is maybe not necessarily directly the Catholic Church, but the, you know, churches in general and the residential schools. That's, you know, it. One of the reasons I wanted to watch that is in light of our questioning the church right now.
The kind of cruelty in Catholic education, the kind of let's not call it child abuse, it was child rape. The kind of child rape that went on systematically for so long. Let's imagine that we can overlook this and say it is nothing whatever to do with the structure and nature of the Catholic Church and the twisted, neurotic and hysterical way that its leaders are chosen. The celibacy, the nuns, the monks, the priesthood. This is not natural and normal, ladies and gentlemen, in 2009. It really isn't. I have yet to approach one of the subjects dearest to my heart. I've made 3 documentary films on the subject of AIDS in Africa. My particular love is the country of Uganda. It's one of the countries I love most in the world. There was a period when Uganda had the worst incidence of HIV/AIDS in the world. But through an amazing initiative called ABC, abstinence, be faithful, correct use of condoms, those 3, I'm not denying that abstinence is a very good way of not getting AIDS. It really is. It works. So does being faithful. But so do condoms. And do not deny it. And this Pope,
look how sad she looks.
This Pope, not satisfied with saying condoms are against our religion, please consider first abstinence, second being faithful to your partner. He spreads the lie that condoms actually increase the incidence of AIDS. He actually makes sure that aid is conditional on saying no to condoms. I have been to, there's a hospital in Buwindi in the west of Uganda where I do quite a lot of work. It is unbelievable, the pain and suffering you see. Now, yes, it is true, abstinence will stop it. It's the strange thing about this church. It is obsessed with sex. Absolutely obsessed. Now, they will say, we with our permissive society and our rude jokes are obsessed. No, we have a healthy attitude. We like it, it's fun, it's jolly, because it's a primary impulse. It can be dangerous and dark and difficult. It's a bit like food in that respect, only even more exciting. The only people who are obsessed with food are anorexics and the morbidly obese. And that, in erotic terms, is the Catholic Church in a nutshell.
I love that tape.
Do you know who will be the last person ever to be accepted as a prince of the church? The Galilean carpenter, that Jew. They would kick him out before he tried to cross the threshold. He would be so ill at ease in the church. What would he think? What would he think of St. Peter's? What would he think of the wealth and the power and the self-justification and the wheedling apologies? The Pope could decide that all this power, all this wealth, this hierarchy of princes and bishops and archbishops and priests and monks and nuns could be sent out in the world with money and art treasures to put them back in the countries that they once raped and violated. They could give that money away and they could concentrate on the apparent essence of their belief. And then I would stand here and say the Catholic Church may well be a force for good in the world. But until that day, it is not. Thank you.
That was just an excellent, scathing, a very different approach than Hitchens took, but just so thorough and to the point and excellent. So I'm Canadian. The Vatican can teach maggots and Trump and the fascist GOP a lot about fucking people over. Absolutely. I have cousins who are deeply religious. It is extremely fucking embarrassing. They're coming out of it now, but they're in their 40s and taught their kids this shit too. It's a long road to decolonization. It's interesting. I've always been curious about, because I have a lot of Indigenous friends that are constantly sharing memes and things about Christian faith, and I used to call everyone out on it because I was a dink when I was early in my atheism years, but I don't do that now, and particularly with my Indigenous peoples, because I'm like, I don't even understand. I don't understand how that seeps in so effectively. Similarly, like the black communities in the U.S. Tend to be very, very religious and very, very Baptist-y kind of religious. And this was a faith that, was behind a lot of the slave trade stuff and was complicit in that. And like, it's just horrifying. And I don't understand. And it's because I'm a honky who's never been the victim of colonization. So I struggle trying to understand how people can continue those beliefs and how we can help them, learn a different path or whatever the words are. This was one of the faithful speaking to her. They'd have been excommunicated. Or she'd have them excommunicated. Absolutely. Just the look on her face when he said condom. She's like, oh no, here we go again. Golly gosh. Who are the perverts? Yeah, I think that's the answer's the Catholic Church. My mother-in-law divorced her useless alcoholic fucktard wife-beating asshole, and the priest turned his back on her in her time of need, then kicked her out of the church for kicking her tormentor out of her life. I fucking hate these bastards. 100%. That idea of the sanctity of marriage, our generation and the generations younger than ours are the ones that were like, hell no, I'm not gonna, like as a woman, I'm not going to be beaten. I'm not going to be abused and hurt. I left my marriage for very, very solid reasons I don't need to get into on stream, because that's the last thing I need in my world. But my life was better. My soul, if such a thing exists, was improved by not being in that marriage. And I'm certain that that was true for her as well. I love all the atheists in the UK. Yeah, fuck yeah. All I can do is be an example at this point. I don't go on their pages and say shit, but recently they agree with my stuff. And I think that's the best that we can hope for, unfortunately, is just to be the shining light. But, it's really, it's strange to me. Like, don't get me wrong, the atheist community is a toxic cesspool of garbage. And I remember going to Skeptics in the pub, and there were like middle-aged guys going, "Where are all the women at?" And it was literally, it wasn't, I'm not overdoing it, like it was, they were slathering, looking for female skeptics to befriend, and it was gross and frustrating and stuff. And I don't think that atheists and are the answer, but it's just like, how do we show people they can be good without God and actually be good without God? We're an expression of the universe. We don't need a soul. Well, I don't think I have a soul. I was being Bender. You are late, buddy, but that's okay. I keep chatting, so we're only halfway through. The entire universe supports our existence. No soul required. Ermagard, greetings, oh munificent one. All right, I will continue playing. Interesting to see a woman in a habit applauding Stephen Fry having just torn a new asshole for the church. I guess, having a new asshole just gives them one more thing to fuck.
Well, Stephen Fry, thank you very much. So you've heard all our 4 speakers. It's going to be your turn, the audience, next. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about what you want to ask.
Exactly, as a gay man, he gave him hell.
Comments you may wish to make. Because I'm going to give you now the result.
This is literally the comment section of this debate. It's like my favorite part of it is all of these people who feel very, very intelligent. If you ever been to a conference, like a professional conference, my experience with them is just like this, where people will ask questions just to show off how smart they are rather than to have an answer.
Result of that vote that you all gave when you were coming in here to Central Hall. The motion is the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. In favour of the motion were 678.
Boo.
Against the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good was 1,102. Big difference. However, 346 of you were undecided. So, Archbishop and Anne Widdecombe, you're going to have to not win over the undecided, but actually convert some from the other side. Let's see if we can sway any opinions here amongst all of.
Yeah, Sugar, I do agree, and I hope you understand that I'm. My interest is not to go and preach atheism or paganism or whatever. My interest is in healing, and again, like if people find that healing from religion or whatever, that's awesome. I want to support people and help them know that like that things are gonna be all right, and we're all here as a family and a community. Yeah, it's not my idea that like if I can just go and tell people, hey, you know what's awesome? Being an atheist, because that atheism isn't the answer to any question, aside from how do you not get laid? It's more, yeah, exactly. They're coming home. It's all about healing. The answer in my mind isn't about, what God or no God. It's about, okay, well, how do we get people to heal?
You by listening to some points that you wish to raise with the panel, and then we're going to ask you to vote again. Now, put your hand up if you want
Welcome
to
to
speak.
the comments section.
If you go on, I've got a little button here that will render you inaudible. So please keep your comments to the point. You're standing, sir, so you must be terribly keen and enthusiastic, so I will come to you first. Say your name and designation if you wish to, if you think it may be relevant.
And I've just come back from the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, where I put to the United Nations Human Rights Council the fact that the Holy See, its alter ego of the Catholic Church, has broken 5 articles of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Just one of those, because it's supposed to produce annual reports, and it's 12 years behind in doing those.
Gasp.
It did not deny, the Holy See came back and did not deny any of the charges that I made on the 22nd of September. Okay. All it said...
You're losing us. What is your point, please?
My point is that it did not deny breaking 5 articles of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child on child abuse. And I think it's disgraceful that it should be allowed to do it and that the international community should let it get away with it.
Okay, thank you.
Probably not a question in the classical sense.
There's a lady here.
But definitely, look at my words.
I would like to ask Mr. Hitchens if he is only against the Catholic Church or against all religions.
Load that gun, Hitch.
I'm just going to take one more. No, just stay here. Okay, anybody upstairs? Can I see? I'm sorry, the lights are in my eyes.
Hi there. This is a question for Christopher Hitchens. Many people today feel that we're really living in some kind of moral crisis, and you can see that all around us. Now, if one thing that the Catholic Church does do for good, in my opinion, is give us the 10 Commandments, a very basic, obvious way of giving us some kind of moral guidance. Would you not agree with that?
No.
Okay, well, let's just get a response here from our panel. So, 10 Commandments, Christopher Hitchens, that question was directed to you. I don't think the Catholic Church has a monopoly on the 10 Commandments, but nevertheless,
is this on?
It is on, just stay.
Am I audible? Yeah. The lady in front began by asking me, do I reserve this condemnation only for the Holy Roman Church and not for other Catholics, for example, like Byzantine Catholics and Protestants and so on? I think they're all the same equivalent glimpses of the identical untruth. And I might use my answer to just say something about Anne Widdecombe. I knew we wouldn't get through without talk about
the 7
money
tenets
being given away on supposedly humanitarian projects in the Third World. You never don't get that. You never get the admission that it's done to proselytize for religion either, which my friends at Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, for example, or Amnesty International don't do. They don't proselytize. They do it for the sake of their fellow creatures. But if I'm debating with a Mormon and I say, are you serious? Joseph Smith got a special revelation on plates of gold in upstate New York, and I ridicule the absurdity of the Church of Latter-day Saints, he's going to say to me, boy, you should see our missionaries in Bolivia, though. It's always the same. Are you going to grant this to Hamas? The whole claim of Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza is they provide social services. Is this claim valid for them too? What nonsense. No. The proper study of mankind is man, and the proper application of humanitarianism is humanistic, in my judgment. Now, of the commandments, the first, I can't list them exactly in order, I have them in my head. The first 2 or 3 are entirely about fearing the author of the orders. Entirely about being terrified of someone who you're enjoined to love. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but the idea of compulsory love has always struck me as a bit shady, especially if you're ordered to love someone who you absolutely must fear. So the first 3 are look out for me and keep at least one day of mine where you'll be terrified full time. Wait a second. Well, it is 10 Commandments.
All right, yes, I know, but I do want to give the other side a chance to come in.
Okay.
Have you made your point there? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly just pop over for the sake of further driving home this point. So I have here the 10 Commandments. So we have, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Roar! Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember to keep holy the Lord's day. So that's the first three that Hitchens was talking about that are all about you will fucking fear me. Honor thy father and mother, do as you're told. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or stuff. That's our 10. So the first three are rar, anger me, and then we've got listen to your folks, don't kill, don't fuck around, don't steal, don't lie, don't wish you had you could bone your neighbor's wife, and don't wish you could steal his shit. That's the whole list of the 10 Commandments. That's all they cover is try not to be all the way awful all the time. These are the 7 fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. The freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon another is to forgo one's own. Belief should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. I just need to move this over. One should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. Sorry, I'm I'm missing my point. One should take care never to restore. Where the hell did I get to? We'll just go back with 4. The freedom of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forgo one's own. Belief should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care to never distort scientific facts to fit one's belief. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. Every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. So in other words, the 7 tenets are like actually a guide to living a fairly moral, decent life. And the 10 Commandments are really just like, here's 10 things we don't want you to do, 3 of which are piss on me. I made my kids do an exercise in both when they were 8 and 10. They live by the tenets. I honestly can't imagine in this world trying to raise my kids with the 10 Commandments as a guidepost. The tenets are obviously superior morally, but they're also just better written. They're more thoughtful. Like, thou shalt not kill. Cool, yeah, no, that makes sense. And there's nothing in the 7 tenets that says thou shalt not kill. Instead, it says things like, that one should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with with reason. Right? And on, like, you can actually look at murder as one example that many of the tenets apply to that say that this is something that you shouldn't do. But, hey, I'm just a communist.
Okay, Anne Widdecombe, 10
Bodily autonomy, yep.
Bedrock of moral teaching.
Yes, but as Christopher Hitchens took the opportunity to reply to a point I'd made, I'm going to take the opportunity to reply to a point that Stephen made, which is very simply this.
When she farts, only dogs can hear it.
No, its critics are obsessed with sex. There's no sex in the creed. There's no sex in the Lord's Prayer. There's no sex in the liturgy. But when the critics start on the Catholic Church, all they can talk about is sex. But of sex...
Okay, whoa. Anne girl, you're doing this wrong. Yeah, there's nothing in the religion about sex, except of course that like if a woman accidentally, she's breaking up a fight between her husband and another man, or trying to help her husband, and accidentally her hand touches the balls of that other man, her husband is meant to kill her. That gay people are awful, and that God will see them burn in hell. The Bible is full of sex. I don't even know where she's getting this. And certainly I wouldn't argue that she knows what she's talking about. She's just fibbing. The 10 Commandments are definitely about fear, versus the 7 tenets, which are about like building things up. I love the Fox News reframing. The 10 Commandments does not mention sex. Stephen mentions sex in the church, therefore he's wrong. And let's be honest, like, it's not like a bunch of Catholics one day were sitting around and they're like, you know what sucks? Condoms. I hate wearing them. I hate the way that, they make my willy feel all tight. Let's just not have condoms anymore. And it just sort of spread from there. No, this came from the top down. This is the Holy Mother Church. And it's based on this concept of, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but his brother dies in battle. And he is forced to take his brother's wife as his wife. And he always felt guilty about this. Onan, I think, is the story. And so God, being a pervert, is like, Onan, fuck that girl. And Onan's like, dude, that's my brother's wife. Like, I'm not down with that. And God's like, no, Onan, fuck that girl. And Onan's like, no, I really, okay. I mean, like, you're God. I guess I'll do it. And so he lays with her as with a woman and pulls out and spills his hallowed seed upon the ground. And our God, who could not have seen that coming, was pissed and made a big deal out of it. And is it? Yeah, Onan, sorry. Was I saying Onan? I don't even know what I was saying anymore. But God smites him smitily with his smiting powers of smitefulness. This is the whole basis behind their anti-abortion stance. It's the whole basis behind their anti-masturbation stance. No condoms. But like, anytime I come, those sperm better be free to find a vagina full of ovums, or I'm just a monster. But it's never applied to men in the sense of, like, if I ejaculate in a woman and she does not become pregnant, I'm not a sinner. It's just, when a woman becomes pregnant and wants to do something about it, or if I decide that I don't want that to happen in the first place and do anything to get in the way of that. It's just stupid. But yeah, the church tells us not to masturbate. The church tells us not to have premarital sex. The church tells us that the condoms are the devil. And yet the church is totally not obsessed with sex. Okay. Let's see, where were we here? Lot's daughters got him drunk. Yeah, Lot's daughters. Give him the old in, out. The fuck is she talking about? That's the same as what people call Islam. These people don't understand it's the same fucking Bible. Yeah, it's, like, you've got the Old Testament, you've got the New Testament, and like each time there's a split. So like the Old Testament and the New Testament obviously are two different faiths. Then comes the book 3, which was the Quran, unless you're a Mormon, in which case book 3 was the Book of Mormon. They're all foundationally Abrahamic religions, and they all have the same shit in them. Could not have seen that coming. Of course, yeah, that was awesome. The entire Catholic Church is predicated on guilt. Absolutely. Okay, let's keep going.
More later. If we can come to the 10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments.
I would have thought it quite obvious that the 10 Commandments set out a blueprint for a moral and successful society. Let us just look at some of them. Honour thy father and thy mother. Think of today's disrespect. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not covet. Tell that to the bankers with their bonuses. I actually think that if you look
says the
at
conservative
the moral precepts of the 10 Commandments, they're as relevant now as they were then.
Okay, Archbishop, do you want to come in briefly on this? And that point about the rights of the child, I mean, there's something that's come up quite a bit.
Well, first of all, the United Nations conventions that he's talking about, they need to be well understood. And it is a fact that there is not a unanimity even in the interpretation of the content and the meaning of many of those conventions is referring to. I am not particularly personally conversant with the issues he is raising, the 5 accusations. That
Sugar, she is still alive. I checked also.
The Holy See, but I'm sure that the permanent observer of the Holy See in Geneva would have given adequate answer to his question. As for defense of children,
love that. I'm sure that nothing bad happened and that they would have given you an answer, and that's just that. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure it's fine.
As for the defense of children, taking care of children, I think we don't have to go to the United Nations to learn about that. Oh, by the way, the 10 Commandments...
Missing the point, dude.
But my father knew it before he became a Christian. All African religions recognized those basic norms of morality. Everybody knows that.
But you know what's not in the 10 Commandments? There's so many things that are not in the 10 Commandments. What's not in the 10 Commandments? Assault. Not in the 10 Commandments. Stock market scandals. Political scandals. There's all kinds of things that are not in the Bible that are covered by the 7 tenets that any good practicing Satanist would be like, this is a wrong thing that I should not do. But Christians are like, well, it's not in the Bible, so Jesus says, go with the short sell. I'm going to jump out for 7 minutes, but I'll keep watching on my phone, but I will be right back.
Let's take some more questions from the floor. Okay.
Don't need the Bible for that.
Chap there.
Hi. This is a very simple question for Anne Widdecombe. You might think it may be a naive question. If so, I'd be very happy to be educated. Why is it wrong for a woman to become a priest, but perfectly acceptable for a woman such as yourself to become an MP?
Okay, thanks. We'll come to that in a moment. I think we're going to go just here next. Yeah.
Hello. It's a query for Anne and the Archbishop. Anne raised a point regarding the billions that are poured into Africa for famine relief, aid and things like that. She also mentioned the billions that are raised in collections. What is the point there? Are you trying to say that the billions that are poured into Africa are raised by collections? Because we don't seem to see any dissolution of the wealth that is sat in the Vatican and in the palaces of the Vatican. And coupled with that, I respect your faith, I respect the message you give, but why, to pass that message on, do you need the finery that you wear? Do you need the palace of the Vatican?
Okay. Point made. I think we're going to go here. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Matthew Hamden, and I've got a brief question for the Archbishop. Sorry, can you hear me?
No. Now we can. Start again.
Oh, thank goodness. Archbishop, of which current Roman Catholic policy are you most ashamed?
Current Catholic policy are you most ashamed of? I'll repeat it. Okay, let's stick with the Archbishop on that. So, Archbishop, which current Catholic policy, this question is, are you most ashamed of?
I don't know whether you're serious in that question or you just want to provoke, because if all our Catholic policies are not just dreamt overnight by the Pope or anybody. If it is a Catholic policy, it is reasonable, it is based on our traditions and scriptures, and there's none about which I'm ashamed, if that is the answer to your question.
Okay, and the other question about, I think the Vatican is worth something like, is it $2.5 billion it has, and it invests it all over the place and so on. Do you need all that money? Was that question up there, all the finery and all the rest of it?
I was trying to listen, I couldn't quite get...
His question was, you talked about the billions in aid that goes to Africa, dispensed by Catholic organisations one way or another, but what about the wealth of the Vatican itself? Do you need all that money?
If it means that they should carry St. Peter's Basilica to Africa, that's not the answer. And I don't know what billions of that he says the Vatican has. The billions of this world, I think, are not in the Vatican. We know where they are, and they are not coming to Africa. On the contrary, Africa has been sucked dry by those people, those multinationals. They are the ones who should be bringing our money back to us. I think we are targeting the wrong place. I come from Africa, and the funds that come from church agencies for us are very important. We know that normally in most of those countries, we should not even be looking up to people to help us. We should be helping ourselves, and we are working towards that.
And Widdecombe, one specific question to you. Why not women priests in the Catholic Church?
Well, no, the specific question was, why is it not all right for a woman to be a priest, but it is for a woman...
We'll pop back in a second, but I did want to just say that was a weaselly answer. Like the weaseliest of weaselly answers. First off, he implied that, the Catholic Church doesn't have billions of dollars. What are you talking about? Of course the Catholic Church doesn't have billions of dollars. We're running on a shoestring here, which is just an all-out lie. And second, trying to point the blame at multinationals. First off, the money that you get from your tithing pretty much largely comes from multinationals, you dink. Second off, way to dodge the question, homeboy. Let's see, while I was out. Spending $400,000 on a toothbrush and $100,000 on toothpaste. Fuck out of here. Yep. Trick me that the black man isn't a token. I dare you. Yeah, I said it. Oh, I guarantee you that. To be fair, like, he's the Archbishop of Nigeria, or of a place in Nigeria. He's now, I believe, he's now a cardinal for Nigeria, but certainly, I don't think he's going to make Pope. That would be scandalous in the church, I would imagine. There's I can't remember which comic it was, whether it was Wormwood or whatever, Preacher, one of those like horrible leftist comic books about religion. It's the one where there's the son of Satan is a guy who hangs out in this bar, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with his dad's war. So he has no desire to bring about the end times. I'm going somewhere with this. Shit, now where was I going with this? Fuck, I totally can't remember. Oh well, it was a good story. It's a good story. Trust me. Screams he was coached by uppers to deflect. No Catholics in these horrible corporations raping Africa. Exactly. Alright, we'll continue because I lost my train of thought there.
We should not even be looking up to people to help us. We should be helping ourselves, and we are working towards that.
And Widdecombe, one specific question to you. Why not women priests in the Catholic Church?
Well, no, the specific question was, why is it not all right for a woman to be a priest, but it is for a woman to be an MP? That was the specific question.
All right.
And I have to say to you, I mean, that really does betray a vast ignorance.
Does it?
A member of Parliament, male or female, does not stand in persona Christi at the point of consecration. The Church is not about careers. The Church is about vocations and about theology. And I do not believe it possible for a woman at the point of consecration. Woman's ministry is different. This is specific to the priesthood, and probably won't be understood by a lot of the people who don't understand the theology of the priesthood.
Filthy liberals.
But I don't believe that it is any more possible for a woman to represent Christ at the point of consecration than for a man to be the Virgin Mary.
Okay, thanks. Lots of...
Sick burn, Anne, sick burn. I had this conversation. I've made comments before. My ex-wife was raising my children to be Mormons after we split up. And I was like, How can you be okay with this? How can you be okay with a religion that says that you cannot be the same level of spiritually capable as a man? And she had all kinds of religiously coached answers to that question. But what it boils down to is that it's a garbage take. In a world where we have equality, women can do the same things as men, and that's not a shock, that's not an awe. She dropped that mic hard. I feel like she's very comfortable with that answer, that, you know, women can have women's ministries, but you can't be like Jesus because, you know, peckers.
Very good. Lots of hands up, and I really do want to go around everybody. So panel, if you could keep your responses to the point as much as you can. Up there, please.
Question to Anne and the Archbishop. How can the Church possibly sustain and justify taking money from the impoverished in Mexico, in Latin America, in Africa, and at the same time suggesting that you're a force for good?
I didn't quite hear that question. Okay, thanks.
Well, question to Stephen Fry. I'm a Catholic, but I like you a lot. And then about, I don't know that the Catholic Church condemns homosexuality as such, only recommends chastity for everybody. And then if I am not married, I should be chaste. Either I am homosexual or heterosexual. And also, as I have read in your books, you should not, or you don't consider that to be celibate for a long period is something so awful or impossible.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now,
I have to admit, it's probably ableist, but yeah, that woman actually like immediately sets off all the alarm bells of like, do not leave this person alone with children or explosives. Yikes. I watched a vid with a girl talking to her Mormon dad, and he admitted he could not give her unconditional love without God, and it was hard to watch. I think that's an interesting thing about a lot of religion, is the idea that they don't understand that the things that they ascribe to their religion are totally within their own ability to do. They've just bought into this idea that without God or whomever, they can't do it. I know when I lost my faith, I'd always been very comfortable with the idea that God had a plan for me and that I was going to be okay. And when I lost my faith, I had, you know, very legitimate fear about like, well, who's going to look after me now? How am I going to get through all of this? And I had to, you know, come to the obvious realization that I had done these things. I had been the person to get me through these things, not God, because God wasn't real. And I would continue to be able to do that. But that wasn't something that was obvious to me. Except I recently learned men can only inherit a wife from their fathers. So Jesus had either had a woman for their dad, or their dad was human and his mother was horny. Well, see, the thing that a religious person will tell you is that God can do whatever the fuck God wants, right? So God just invented a sperm with a Y, you know, just spun up some DNA and was like, pow, right into Mary's ovum. But yeah, that's a thing that I remember figuring out at some point, was saying like, wait a second, if the Y chromosome, which is actually just a damaged chromosome, it's an X that has broken at some point in our evolutionary history. If the Y chromosome comes from the male, how could Jesus have been male? And it's sort of a neither here nor there, because the whole concept is just batshit crazy. If there really was a Jesus, and there really was a Mary, and Joseph really wasn't Jesus's father, then someone else was. That's all there is to it. God only helps those who help themselves. Contradictory bullshit depending which way the shit is piled. Mary Magdalene was a hoe. I got into with my pops over why his faith is more concrete evidence than scientific fact. His response, well, scientists will make up anything to disprove religion. Facepalm. Yeah, you know, to be fair, that's why they tortured Galileo. They made reference to that earlier in in the video, right? Galileo was tortured because he just invented this whole, the Earth isn't the center of the... Well, Copernicus invented it, but he went and proved it with his fake sciencing. God. Like, what are they going to tell us next? That the Earth isn't flat and less than 6,000 years old? OMG.
Okay, did I say that? Yeah.
Hi, question for Anne Widdecombe, actually. You accused Christopher Hitchens of judging the Catholic Church by the standards of the time, but surely the truths in your doctrines are either eternal or they're not.
Ha! Burn! Well played.
Okay. I'll just take one more there and then we'll come... Yeah, go on.
Hello? My name is Jeremy Drax. I was baptized Church of England and I'm now in the Church of Rome. Of all the speakers here tonight, I endorse 100% what Stephen Fry has said. In our church, we do not reject anyone. The life of Christ was a life of service, a life of sacrifice, and a life of generosity. He did not spend it with the rich, the powerful, those with nice clothes and refinery. He spent it with the down and outs, the poor, the sick, those who were rejected by society.
Buy that man a beer.
It is a tragic shame that a church that is founded on such fabulous principles has lost its way, in my professional view and personal view, in buildings that are arguably excessive to its requirements, with cardinals and bishops who, with Christ's guidance, should be on the shop floor serving the people. Therefore, why is this church not leading by example and following the life of Christ?
All right, thanks.
I remembered why I brought that comic up. Again, I can't remember if it was Preacher or Wormwood or what, but there's a character who's the Pope. And let's just say they pull no punches. The first time you meet him, they open the door to this room, and he's in there. He's this tiny little Australian man, and he's being, shall we say, entered by a nun with a attachment while doing, I think, what's that? Amyl nitrate, I think was what he was doing. And the comment in the comic was, you know, the two cardinals then leave the room and they're like, ugh, how did we get this guy as Pope? And the other one says something to the effect, well, it was him or the N-word. And that's sort of where it's left. And I think that is, you know, it's an awful, awful thing, but I think that's probably not that far from what would be reasonably believable. This Australian man, for the record, was just terrible. He was like almost Satan on earth, but that's the holy Catholic Church. You paint a picture I can feel in my nether regions. Well, it's a skill that I have. And again, like that's horrible. It's horrible to A, make the Ensler thing, and B, the idea of the, you know, portraying the Pope like that, but also funny and terrible and awkward and all things I associate with Catholicism.
You're reading a statement there. Okay, fine. Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry, the question about the Catholic Church apparently doesn't condemn homosexuality, that question asked.
Well, I'm afraid it simply does. It does condemn it, yes. It calls it, the official word is disorder, but it was refined by the current pontiff, Ratzinger, who called it a moral evil. But on the other hand, we must remember, as the point that was made, is that the Church is very loose on moral evils, because although they try to accuse people like me who believe in the empiricism and the Enlightenment of somehow what they call moral relativism, as if it's some appalling sin, where what it actually means is thought. They, for example, thought that slavery was perfectly fine. Absolutely okay, and then they didn't. They thought until the year 2000 that a baby went to limbo, causing unbelievable distress to parents whose child died. Okay. Unbelievable distress. And then, with a wave of the hand and a stamp of a seal, it was no longer true. Something that had been eternally, or at least true for 2,000 years, suddenly wasn't. Because the truth is complicated. It's hard. And what is the point of the Catholic Church if it says, oh, well, we couldn't know better because nobody else did? Then what are you for?
Stephen Fry, debate champion.
Oh, and yeah, and the question about eternal truth as well, if you could, yeah.
I think it is high time. I didn't want to get into too much theology tonight, but I think it's high time that this interpretation of limbo by Stephen Fry was questioned. Now, I actually went to a Catholic school, I absorbed Catholic doctrine, I was certainly taught about limbo, and I don't actually recognise Stephen's description of it. Because it wasn't for all eternity. What limbo was simply, and I do appreciate that to most people this won't matter, but it just needs answering. What limbo was straightforwardly a place where they waited for the second coming. That is all.
Yes. So it's not forever, it's just until the end of
Can you
time.
just clarify for us on this thing about homosexuality? The Catholic Church condemns the act but not the individual. Did Jesus Christ himself actually say anything about homosexuality? I don't think he did.
That is a wrong question in this regard. Because we are not aware about homosexuality, the morality of homosexuality being a matter that drew the attention of Jesus. But Jesus certainly spoke about the Ten Commandments. And
Just real quick, I just want to say thank you for the follow. Zerkzox, I can't possibly say that, but thank you very much for the follow. Welcome.
Adultery. But to come to the position of the Church of homosexuality.
Reno, hey, how you doing, buddy?
There are people who have homosexual tendencies, and they even consider themselves as such. But the Church also says that the homosexual acts are wrong, but that doesn't mean that those who are engaged in it are condemned outright, because each person has his own personal story.
Okay. In the New Testament, if I'm not mistaken, in Romans, which admittedly isn't the words of the Jesus, it's Paul in his letter to the Romans, but he describes a town where God wanted to punish the people, so he made them all queer gays. So, no, it's pretty clear that they look at it as a terrible, horrible thing that's a punishment. At the very least, forget all of the Old Testament abomination of God shit. Just in that one story in the New Testament is an example of the view of homosexuality.
Room for that. I do
Reno.
not think we should deny the Church the right to propound its own doctrines. You are not obliged to take it.
Let's hear some more from the floor. I'm sorry about the question about eternal truth. We may get to that a little later. Okay, over there, up there.
It actually follows on from the point just raised. As a gay man, I find the history of sexual repression and oppression that's gone on in the church to be argued that that's just being obsessed by sex to be a bit offensive, and I wondered if Anne Widdecombe would defend her position a little bit more on sexuality.
We've had that point. We've dealt with that point. Can I go to number?
Are you getting the vibe though that like the crowd really doesn't like Anne Widdecombe, or Archbishop thing on his head?
Two.
I just wanted to say on behalf of myself and my fellow degenerates that I would just like to ask all the Catholics in the room, as well as the proposing team, if they'd like to just stay out of my sex life and in my bedroom.
All right.
That'd be great.
We've had this. Okay. Can we have slightly different points, perhaps that haven't been raised? Yeah. Let's see if I've got any luck with you.
Yes. This is a point specifically to the Archbishop. He spoke about his father and how before becoming a Christian, his father had a basic grasp of the Ten Commandments from the society that he lived within. He seemed to use this as a point to prop up his own argument. I would argue the contrary. Surely, if people have a grasp of basic morality without the dogma, the doctrine of the church, then everything good, all the humanitarian aid, all the great work that the church has been doing that you've spoken about, surely that's not the church, that's just people that have to be under this umbrella of the church. It's the people that are doing it, not the dogma of the church.
Here. I'm going to take that as a point rather than a question. Could the young lady with the spectacles, yeah.
Yeah, talking about sort of the humanitarian aspect of what's done, I was just wondering if Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens felt that perhaps there would still be the...
This audience seems a bit biased. I'd say this audience seems a bit based.
same amount of aid,
I'm a
and
boomer.
still same amount of concern for sort of, people in Africa that do need our help without sort of this emotional, spiritual blackmail that perhaps the Catholic Church can be guilty of.
Okay, we'll come to that. Any supporters of the Catholic Church? Because so many of you. Sorry, I'm not showing bias, but just to spice things up. Wait till the microphone gets to you.
I said based.
Yeah.
I'm super young and hip and with it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the word intelligence, and I think behind the word intelligence is reason. I thought that this discourse was going to be about intelligence and reason, and not about emotion, whipping up emotions. I want to ask Hitchens and Fry. You try to put the blame of the Jewish Holocaust and the slave trade squarely on the shoulders of the church. Are you sure of that position?
Okay. Just pass the microphone to the sister next to you, please, because I think you had your hand raised.
That's wrong. That's not what he said. He didn't say that the Catholic Church did a Holocaust. Although, indigenous people would probably qualify, sorry to say, but the Holocaust, he said that they were complicit, and they were. So, yeah, you missed that, buddy. Hitch had some shit takes. Absolutely. He was not perfect. He was not a holy man, but in this debate and in debates like this, he was always just on point. Too much Vosh for Jim. Well, Vosh bad. I'm loving this current anecdote about the molested stabbing the clergy with a crucifix, and the reply is, let's punish the same way they punish the rapists, send them to another church to repeat their transgression. That's horrible and fucking awesome. Oh my god, I love that and hate that and love that.
Then we'll come to the panel.
I am a Reverend Sister and a nun. I just want to say that our life is based on the life of Jesus Christ, not on emotion or based on the way the world is going. So I thank all the people who are listening, and I think the message we are getting here will lead us to live a good life. That's why myself, sitting here listening to the talk, I think it is good that we focus our attention on the life lived by our Lord Jesus Christ.
Thanks very
and
much.
what our Archbishop trying
Thank
to...
you. Thank you, sister. Thank you. Let me just take a couple more, actually, because so many hands in the air.
That's such a half-assed, I get it, but what are you saying? You're saying, the church did some bad, but, can't we all just live a good life and be kind and loving and wonderful and, yeah, absolutely. And on an individual level, Catholics largely do that. But the Catholic Church the question is it a force for good? And if it was just a room where people could go to think about how they could do really nice things and learn how to be better people, that'd be awesome. It's the part where they're raping children or, destroying cultures that may be a bone of contention for some. I don't know.
Can we come... Yeah, just take your pick at the front there.
Why are they shutting her up? Because she wasn't really adding anything to the conversation. She was just...
Too much, too
Anne
long.
Widdecombe said there was no sex in the Lord's Prayer. In the world I inhabit, you don't become a father without sex being involved.
All right, we'll take that as a point, as a comment. If you've got brief comments, okay, there, and then I'm going to come to the panel, don't worry.
As is so often
Also, let's get some Haiti people who are children during some of their disasters. Yep.
The devil lies in the interpretation of single words in the motion. And word is good. And it is, I think one has to accept that if you have 1 billion followers, then it is an enormous force. But whether it's exercising its good now or it should change, Stephen Fry left the door open to us to see that if the Curia and the Pope admit that there needs to be change, then we would, I think, vote more favourably for the Church.
Okay, thanks. Let's just get through some more comments.
Pretty terrible moderator, though, I have to say.
Briefly.
Thank you. As somebody who spent 38 years of her life as a Catholic and then saw the light...
Start again. Sorry, we didn't hear.
I spent 38 years of my life as a Catholic and then I saw the light. And my life now is going back and forth to Africa, and next month I go to Uganda, and I'm working on trying to stop mothers dying in pregnancy and childbirth. What I'm saying is, please, please, reverse the rule on condoms and family planning and contraception and save more lives. Save thousands and thousands of lives.
Yeah, the moderator's doing just a garbage job.
Because they need... okay, where is the microphone? Microphones? Yeah. Okay,
You invited a few hundred people to a room and you're like, everyone 10 seconds or more, or less.
As a Catholic, I'm actually very pleased to be here this evening to hear two sides of a very important argument. And the positive thing I take away is that the Catholic Church can take the opportunity to reflect upon these comments, and that we look for the future. And it's by actually accepting these comments and by looking for a way forward that the Church can actually grow and have a more important part of the world.
All right. Thank you.
I agree with that, but they don't do it. This is the thing. Using the example of Indigenous children in the residential school system, this was not like last week someone was like, oh, hey, BT Dub Church, there's some kids and we murdered them a bunch, and we didn't, you know, we didn't do a lot of good things, and we stole them from their homes and tried to, you know, eradicate any sense of their own culture, like, and the church went, OMG, what? Well, we should stop, and we should take a moment and figure out what went wrong and never do that again. This has been 100+ years of the church going, ixnay on the residential schools, Ray. They don't take these moments to think and to consider. There is no contrition in the church or in Mrs. Wiggins there. Yes, as a Catholic, I'm looking for a dick to stick. Stickers suck. Either way. I would assume that based on the typo, that suck. But that would mean they'd have to admit they fucked up, and they don't do that. The followers do. The institution steadfastly refuses to bow to reality or be authentic. Fuck them. Yeah, exactly. That's my complaint about. I love his hope, you know, because the Catholic Church is a bastion of hope for the people, and maybe one day they will listen and learn and adapt and grow and accept that moral relativism that says that 2,000 years ago shepherds didn't come up with the perfect answer for society.
Thank you. Up there. You're going to have to address all these points in your closing statement.
This is a question for Stephen and Christopher. I'm really happy that Stephen's mentioned the Enlightenment and empiricism, which is something that I think can add a lot to human existence. I'm just wondering what your thoughts on the monopoly of a certain type of sensation that religion seems to have on the existence of God is obviously put down to a particular sensory experience, and also the further impingement religion is having upon empiricism, in particularly the United States, on things like intelligent design and these arguments. Thank you.
Yeah, briefly. Okay, very, very quickly, like 15 seconds, everybody. Yeah. Where is the microphone? Just take it there. You don't
Just fucking take it.
Question for the Archbishop. I'd like to know how you calculate the figure of how many Catholics there are in the world. I was baptised a Catholic. I'm now atheist. I presume it's done by baptism records, and I'm calculated as a Catholic.
Okay.
And why can I not now disassociate myself from the church?
All right. I'm sorry, everybody. Can't really take any more questions. Can't take any more questions from the panel. What I propose is this. You've heard the points that are raised. Some of them were comments, some of them were questions. You're going to have a few minutes to make your closing statements. Please incorporate these questions that you heard in your closing statements, because audience, I want you to vote again. Now, for those of you who are watching
It's
at
like
home, if you'd
Britain's
like a
Got
statement
Religion.
booklet on some of those issues that you've heard raised today, then please go to www.intelligencesquared.com and you can download that booklet. Anybody can do it, and it's absolutely free. Okay, so everybody is doing that. So while you're all doing that, it's going to take a little bit of time.
She's so
We're
frazzled.
going to hear the closing statements incorporating some of the points that you, the audience, raised, and we're going to do it in reverse order this time. And it's going to be Stephen Fry first.
Well, it's been a really interesting debate, and I've loved some of the questions from the floor. I suppose I'm slightly disappointed that Anne Widdecombe in particular should say, oh, I knew they'd bring up condoms and child rape and homosexuality. It's a bit like a burglar in court, so you would bring up that burglary and that manslaughter. You never mention the fact I give my father a birthday present. You know, it's, yes, are you getting the message? There is a reason we hammer home these issues, because they matter. There's such an opportunity, owning 1 billion souls at baptism. It's such an
I
opportunity.
see Dr. Awesome TBM. Hello. I'm sorry I didn't see that earlier. I hope you're doing well. Oh, you're brand new. Like brand new, like just said that.
Final statement from Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe for the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world.
Right, we have had all the usual stuff about how the Catholic Church being against condoms has apparently caused untold misery. As I've said, our opponents always try to home in on sex, when the teachings of the Church, which are, after all, only about the stability of family, the maintenance of fidelity, the virtue of chastity, when the Church teaches that as one part of all its teaching, I do sometimes despair at the way that these debates always come back to that. So I'm very pleased to have been here.
It's important to really understand the sanctity of genocide, and our role in that has been always above board and above reproach.
Tonight, despite the fact that I think the incoming
Her
poll
voice
was
suits her
slightly
great like
discouraging.
nails in a chalkboard. Yep.
I'm very pleased to have been here with the Archbishop and with the two gentlemen opposite, and thank you for the opportunity.
Against the motion, Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher
Unanswered
Hitchens.
questions. Amazing. No one, though they were asked repeatedly, would say whether they thought Stephen Fry, my friend, was in a state of mortal sin or not. They wouldn't tell you. Something about the question brought out their inner coward. Well, I say that homosexuality is not just a form of sex, it's a form of love, and it deserves our respect for that reason. That when my children were young, I'd have been proud to have Stephen as their babysitter, and I'd told them they were lucky. And if anyone came to my door as a babysitter wearing holy orders, I'd call first a cab and then the police.
Final statement from our final speaker, Archbishop of Abuja, John Onaiyekan. You've got to make your final pitch now to the audience.
Thank you very much. I just want to draw the attention of the audience.
I would love if at this moment, I know this could never happen, but if Archbishop was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right, I'm out.
Back to the topic. And the topic is quite clear. The Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. It did not say it is the only source for good. It did not say it has always been a source for good. It's not in the past tense, it's in the present tense, is a source for good. I still have not seen how they have in any way shown that the Catholic Church is not a force for good in the world. I can say all kinds of things about other people, but I think it is fair enough that when it comes to what does the church say about condoms, what does it say about homosexuality, what does we say about women priests, we need to take the trouble to find out exactly what it is saying, not what the newspapers are saying that we are saying. We never said that the Catholic Church is perfect. We continue to
It's
do
just
our
from
best
God.
to be as close as we can to Jesus Christ and what he wants us to be, and to constantly be a force for good in the world. And I thank you.
Archbishop, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pop in again for a second. I'm just going to say he failed so miserably here, the Archbishop. It's the question is and it's a bad question, is the Catholic Church a force for good? Because there are good things that have been done by the Catholic Church, therefore technically it is a force for good. There are evil things that the Catholic Church has done, and therefore it is a force for evil. So it is a force for both. To imply that realistically, the majority of the things that have been done that are good were done by the faithful of the Catholic Church. And one could argue that the Catholic Church gathered them together and gave them the ability to do that. I think that's kind of a weak answer, but all right, fine. But it's done both. And what bugs me about the Archbishop's response is, much like what I was talking about a few minutes ago, it's that complete deafness of, yeah, sure. Bible, I don't know, I haven't read the thing, but I bet it probably doesn't say anything about condoms in the Bible. No, but it talks about Onan, and it talks about how seed shouldn't be wasted, and therefore we should definitely be encouraging people who are in third world countries that have high rates of HIV infection to just not use condoms. That's a thing, dude. Like...
Audience, you've all voted again. Now, the Moment of Truth panel. Let me remind everybody that before the debate, when everybody came in, this is how you voted. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world, 678. Against the motion, 1,102. And the undecideds, the don't knows, were 346. This is how you voted subsequently. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good, from 678, it's gone to 268.
Burn!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Against the motion, it's now 1,876.
Oh, yeah. That does the heart good.
And you can see that doesn't leave very many don't knows. It's 34 undecided. So, commiserations, Archbishop and Anne Widdecombe. Congratulations, Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens. Thank you all. From me, Zain Abidari, goodbye.
Well, that was fun. Let me get my my screen back here. There we go. All right. Yeah, I found that interesting, but I also found it like deeply troubling. Let's see, where were we? It's troubling that she's an MP in the House of Lords and therefore people voted for her. Yeah. All I'm hearing is that same, there's as much good as there is bad, so it's got to be good. Okay, but why the women in your country need vaginal inserts to avoid rape, or pants that have locks and can't be cut off? To be fair, the women in our country need straws that turn colors and special names for drinks that mean that the staff need to protect you. So, we're not doing a whole fuck of a lot better there. Like, let's be honest about that. I feel that the poor bishop has spent too much time in the bush and lost connection with reality. They should just send him thoughts and prayers. Yet I think the bishop is actually like the quintessential Catholic voice, though. Because what he's saying is like, I don't care about all the horrors that have been done. I don't care that, children have been raped and that our positions continue to promote an HIV crisis in a country where it's not necessary. I don't care about that because God is love. And can't we all just, be awesome and do good? And that's fucking yucky. Yucky. If you because the church says women have no rights, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Don't say bad things about guns. Stop it. Yeah, well, it's true. I'm actually not a anti-gun person. Abby on the Facebook chat says, "I'm watching this in an office full of Catholics." Oh, kiddo, I feel your pain. For the longest time, I had the pleasure of being like the only atheist in most rooms that I was in, because I came from a religious upbringing, and most of the people that I knew were religious. I worked for a born-again Christian, who ran a company and was very loud about his faith. So there's some permanent grooves on my tongue that from biting it so hard. Definitely. So I really enjoy that debate. Part of the reason I wanted to rewatch it was like in light of all of the situation with residential schools and stuff. Hang on, it's now getting dark enough. I'm gonna fix my lighting. Stretch. Which is not plugged in, so I plug it in. There we go. That's better. You can see me better now, and I'm pretty and stuff, so you want that. I'm an anti-alabasters who hate and can't dress an animal gun person. Anti-alabasters who can't or who hate and can't dress an animal. Oh, okay, yeah. I had to piece those things together. Yes, opposed to those honkies who are full of hate and want to have a gun but have no idea how to dress an animal. Totally, I get that. I'm all for. I actually want to own guns, but I want to be that person that owns them safely. I have children, so that's why I don't have guns, because my 17 and 18-year-old children don't need to be in a home with guns. That's my own personal take. I'm not saying that if you have guns you're bad, or if you don't have guns you're good. I didn't feel comfortable as a parent having children in my house owning a gun. I also have no skill with a gun. I've been to the shooting range, and I went with people that were like good at gunning, and I was like pew 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 pew, and they bring the little thing comes up, and it's like there's a bullet over here and a bullet there. Like, oh fuck, a pancreas up, no problem, as long as I'm aiming for the head. But I found it really fun. I didn't expect to. I never had before. Like, I'm a Canadian kid, so summertime you always have to go to like Beavers and Cub Scouts and all that shit, and you go to camp and they give you like a 22 and you go pew pew and you feel like a little badass. Only it never meant shit to me. When we went to the shooting edge, the first gun I shot was an Uzi. They're semi-automatic, like it's converted to not shoot millions of bullets. But I was like, oh my god, an Uzi, this is so cool. Meh. And then I shot this plastic fucking Gulf War like painted camo super ninja, again semi-automatic, but like assault rifle thing, and I'm like, meh. And I was like, maybe shooting's not for me, and I grabbed this Heckler and Koch or whatever the pronunciation is, the stupid, and and I totally got it. I enjoyed the fuck out of that. I don't see the need to have a gun for personal protection. I certainly don't see the need to have a gun to win an argument or to, ventilate a school. I enjoy the process of shooting and would do so more. But people who, like the people who are like, my guns, like, really? I don't know. I feel, I saw this thing today where someone was talking about like, Biden said something about like maybe we'll have to go door to door and check on people's vaccinations, which was the stupidest shit thing to say. But then the right wing were like, oh my god, the next thing they'll do is they'll use that same system to go door to door and confiscate your guns. I don't know if you guys know this, but doors are not a new technology. Doors have been around for a while. So if you're worried that Biden's going to go door to door and take your guns, you're probably worried over nothing. Just my 2 cents. Yeah, Yeah, I feel like that the bishop was like, they all kind of played their role. The bishop was the quintessential Catholic who refuses to acknowledge the problems of Catholicism and instead embraces the. Did I say the bishop? Did I say something besides the bishop? The bishop totally. It just embraces that all things Catholic of like, everything's good, we're doing good, genocide, there's no genocide, whatever. And then and Widdecombe was that like perfect classic British woman who is in power, conservative, who wants to not talk about condoms. The bishop. Poorly played Monty Python reference. I got it now. It took me a second. There's certain things that like I'll pick up on immediately. Like if someone had typed in like, no one expects a kind of Spanish Inquisition, I'd be like, oh my god. Yeah. But the bishop took a second. And I think, obviously Hitchens and Fry were dead on balls with their roles. Hitchens as the eloquent provocateur, and Stephen Fry as the very genuine, like, he's very liberal and very, like, likable and all that kind of stuff, and just like, yes, turns out I don't like these things, and he brought up a lot of points Hitchens hadn't touched on. I thought he did a good job. I thought they did a good job. I thought it was a really good debate. I would love to find a way to bring that debate to modern times so that they could dwell a little bit more on the whole question of Indigenous people the world over, and uniquely in Canada, not uniquely, sorry, specifically in Canada and the United States, and the church's role in that genocide. I'd just like to know his feelings, though. How does that negativity not affect him? Strong ass Kool-Aid. And that's what it is. It's like when I was a kid and I was in the church, I would very much have the same kind of a vibe. I'd be like, yeah, like, I get that the church does some bad things, but like, my church is good. My church, it's the no true Christian fallacy, right? Like, no true Christian would ever do that. We wouldn't do a genocide. But my church is so positive and so caring and so loving and so wonderful, and like, guys, just be like my church. I totally get that. Fry is the velvet glove with a steel glove underneath. Yeah, he's the deep fried screwdriver. You think, oh! That's how I got my teeth, by the way. I think we are smarter than them. Well, yeah, there is that. I certainly don't pretend that I don't think people who are faithful are dumb. Same as, like, there's people that say that there's some scientific study. I've never actually seen whether this is true or not, but there's some scientific study that says that conservatives have smaller brains, or there's a portion of the brain that's smaller or whatever, and that religious people have the same, like, there's all these kinds of things. But I don't actually believe that. I think that what, by and large, more what I'm more comfortable with is the idea that a lot of people become indoctrinated. And, like, I look at my parents, who I love dearly, but are very indoctrinated, and that has only become more so in the last few years as they lived in this other city where they're going to a more evangelical church. Like, when we were kids, the church that I grew up in was a very, like, hippie, liberal, happy place. And then they were looking for that same thing, and they found it in this other church downtown before they moved out of town that was a lot more evangelical and a lot more like, praise him, kind of, that vibe, but not super over the top. And then they went to live in Kelowna, and the first church they found was like, let me tell you about the gays in evolution. And they're like, this isn't the church for me. And they found this mission church, and the mission church is like, okay, let me tell you a little bit about Jesus, but first we're going to sing for 45 minutes at the top part of your vocal range so that you're going to be completely out of breath and seeing shit. And I just, like, my parents are not dumb people. They were raised with a tradition that they were told it would be dangerous to question. And meanwhile, that it's positive to reinforce. And so every time they were in a position where they had to question something, they would just not. And I get that. I totally get that. It's weird, but also like, you know, okay, my folks are good people. They will not get out of the church. They will never see it as a negative force. And it's like that they buy in. Intelligence and logic and reason are two different things. Absolutely. Eugenics in reverse, lol. Religion is a social construct. People want to feel they belong to something. Brains and belonging conflict and live together quite nicely. Yeah, absolutely. And we're, you know, God knows we're able to hold completely warring oppositional thoughts in our heads at the same time. Like that's a thing that I don't think is uniquely human, but you know, we do that all the time. And we just sort of, you know, breathe through the inconsistencies and go, religion is a survival tool. Yeah, oh, I like that too. That's really good. And it, you know, like Sagan had have you guys ever watched the series Cosmos that came out? Not the one that Neil deGrasse Tyson did recently, but the original Carl Sagan Cosmos. Phenomenal show. I'm fairly certain it's available for free online somewhere. I think I pirated it, you know, back in the days of the Pirate Bay. It's so worth watching. It's certainly dated, but it's super worth watching. And there's an episode where he talks about, you know, people gathered around a campfire, early humans. And, you know, there's the fire, and it's good, and it's keeping them warm and safe. And they look up in the sky, and they see obviously distant fires. So it must be distant campsites. And so they come up with the idea of these wanderers up there who are like them wandering down here. And, you know, this is the sort of the origins of our understanding of space. Planet means wanderer, if I'm not mistaken. But we try to understand things, and when we don't have an answer, we just go, gods. It was gods. And more now, you know, we're having other answers, and I fucking love that. The more we learn, the less space there is for God. The smaller God gets, until he's no longer there, because he wasn't there in the first place. But yeah, religion is a survival tool. Religion allowed us to teach stories. Like the story, you know, the idea of pork is an unclean meat. And I can't speak to the validity of this, but I'd heard that the practice of eating pork, you know, it's an unclean meat. Well, that came out of the Bible. I don't know if it was Old Testament or New. I think it was Old Testament, but at the time, yeah, the God of the Gaps. At the time, the way that you were preparing pork often left you with parasites that would make you sick and potentially kill you. And so having it be a danger to you was, you know, not good. So you just don't eat it. So instead of saying don't eat pork because people don't listen, you go, Jesus doesn't want you to eat pork. God doesn't want you to eat pork. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, well then I better not eat pork. The dangers of being certain. By the way, I am Canadian. I don't know if you know this, but I made you a mod on my Twitch. So you have all of the mod powers. So you can do the mod things. I should check in case there's anything. No, nothing's been caught. No one said any bad words today. That's awesome. What was I gonna do here? Let's pop open the dangers of being certain and see what it looks like. Where's my window with the, there we go. Reno, you missed. I compared the 7 tenets to the 10 commandments, and it was fun. So this is a thing by Royce or Hoyce Carlson in this incredibly complex encounter. Let's just read this together, shall we? Let me pop open my browser screen. Where is my browser? ¿Dónde está el browser screen? There it is. It's only a page long. We can do that. So, yeah, this is from 2001 by Royce or Hoyce Carlson, The Dangers of Being Certain. In this incredibly complex and chaotic world, we have a strong, innate desire to be sure of things. We want a rock to hold on to in the sea of incomprehensible forces that move us. Because of this fear of uncertainty, we recreate belief systems that put the world in order so that we can feel more comfortable. We become sure of our beliefs. This tendency is limiting at best and dangerous at worst. First of all, we already come into the world with a limited capacity to perceive what is going on around us. Our eyes only take in a small spectrum of light, our ears have a limited range of sound, and our other senses are limited as well, except for mine, which are magic. Add to this the limitation of language and culture. As we grow, we begin to think in words. Our spoken language limits what can be thought about and how it can be thought about. There's an old adage about how Eskimos, Inuit people, have 100 different words for snow. They can think about snow in much greater differentiation because they have more words for it. If there are no words to describe something, we can think about it very easily. In addition, as we all assimilate the culture we are raised in, we begin to structure our perception of the world in accordance with the norms of our particular culture, to the exclusion of other ways of thinking. If you're sick, for example, it's totally normal to think about seeing a doctor. This is not true from other cultural perspectives. In some cultures, it would be totally normal to seek out a shaman to exorcise the spirits that are making you sick. Or in America, to just go to work anyway. Old testy for sure. With good Samaritan laws, we need to make obstacles to base survival become illegal. You'll have to fill me in on Thursday. Yeah, but God had a thing against blended fabrics too. I'm sure there's a gay retort to that, but I'm gonna leave that alone. This is great. I've never seen this belief in print. I've always thought this. Yeah, this is. I really like this. Given that we are experiencing the world through the filters of limited sensory input, the limited potential of our native language, and the limited perspective of our native culture, it's amazing that we believe we can think about the world objectively, let alone be sure of anything. But this is what we want, to be certain. Certainty helps us become passionate. It helps us get wound up to right injustices or to try to convert people to our beliefs. The problem is we have incomplete information and maybe even wrong information. And to top it all off, we get irate if our tenuous belief systems are challenged. When we adopt belief systems, they become structures through which we experience the world. Events and experiences that fit that belief system are used to reinforce it, and experiences that contradict it or are outside of the belief system are either ignored or denied. Cognitive dissonance. This makes the belief system self-reinforcing to the detriment of knowledge and reality. It is, if for some reason a person is bombarded with information and experiences that contradict their beliefs, this usually creates a crisis. The attachment to beliefs can be so strong that when a person understands that their beliefs are limited or wrong, they can have nervous breakdowns or even commit suicide. We cannot help but try to make sense of our experiences. Our brains are built to create worldviews that work with us. This is what humans do. If our desire to know the truth and expand our range of experience is strong enough, we must come up with something. How can we create a belief system that is flexible and corresponds to the greatest diversity of phenomena? My answer is to embrace uncertainty. The world is a vast mystery, full of amazing complexity and wondrous phenomenon. Why not celebrate it? Adopt a belief system that works for you, but don't hold on too tightly. Accept that you may be wrong. Make your beliefs preferences rather than necessities. Whenever you experience something that does not fit your worldview, drop your worldview, not the experience. It is only in this way that you can truly open yourself up to more of what is really going on out there instead of what you think is going on. Avoid the dangers of being certain by becoming comfortable with uncertainty, complexity, and the apparent chaos in which we swim. I like that a bunch. It's it's a cool way of looking at that. Crazy but awesome. Yeah. I enjoyed that. Thanks. I am Canadian. That's fantastic. I think the idea of that is really important. Uncertainty, because I remember again going through my fall from grace to become an atheist. I was like, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear and question and all that stuff, and it's unnerving to be in that position, and I had to embrace a certain amount of uncertainty. I didn't know what the world held for me, and I always thought I had. And I didn't know how things were going to turn out all of a sudden, and that was okay, because the way I reasoned it was I never knew. I always thought I knew, and I was wrong. So this all worked out in the past. It's going to work out again. Uncertainty. I was getting hard critical thinking vibes. Leap in the net shall appear. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, 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 very in tune with that whole critical thinking vibe. I'm gonna take a smoke break, but first I'm gonna put on, because I mentioned earlier Cosmos. I'm not gonna make you watch Cosmos, but I am gonna make you watch something that is super nerdy. Yeah, you're probably gonna hate this, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is somebody made music based on Carl Sagan videos from Cosmos and similar. So there's other stuff that's related, but it's all like in the style of electronic music, but not like wub electronic music. And it's super nerdy, but I'm playing it while I go for a smoke. I won't be long, and I'll be watching it too. So you know I'll suffer with it.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I think nature's imagination is so much greater than man's. He's never gonna let us relax.
We live in an in-between universe where things change alright, but according to patterns, rules, or as we call them, laws of nature.
I'm this guy standing on a planet. Really, I'm just a speck compared with a star. The planet is just another speck. To think about all of this, to think about the vast emptiness of space. There's billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. Cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Across the sea of space, the stars are others. We've traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I find it elevating and exhilarating to discover that we live in a universe which permits the evolution of molecular machines as intricate and subtle as we.
I know that the molecules in my body are traceable to phenomena in the cosmos. That makes me want to grab people in the street and say, have you heard this?
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
There's this tremendous mass of waves all over in space, which is the light bouncing around the room, going from one thing to the other, and it's all really there, really there. But you gotta stop and think about it, about the complexity, and really get the pleasure. It's all really there, really there. The inconceivable nature of nature. To think about all of this, to think about the vast emptiness of space. There's billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it,
by the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Across the sea of space, the stars are other sun. We've traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.
Sorry. That was funny. There was a whole thing there where I was talking about, like, if you enjoyed that nerdy music, the Symphony of Science has a whole bunch of stuff. Thank you, Abby. Yeah, it's. I had muted my mic because I'm dumb. Abby pointed out that I'm sitting here going. Yeah. So, and then I read the comment that I am Canadian. Bender said I've definitely been finding myself drawn to his works more and more these days. And I was going to tell you a cool story about that. So, I read Demon Haunted World, which is a Carl Sagan book, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's a great book. And one of the sections on it, he talks about aliens and religion and talking about sleep paralysis and what's the word for it, the feeling of being trapped and stuff. And when we were earlier in human evolution, pre the church, we came up with the character Queen Mab, who would sit on your chest and do, I don't remember what Queen Mab does, but do horrible shit to you, right? That was her jam. And then when we got religion, it was angels that would come to us in our sleep, and we wouldn't be able to move, and we would be in the presence of these angels who would do things to us. And now that we're all rednecks living in a trailer park in Tulsa, we have little green men that come to us in our dreams and hold us down. It's a common thing, and I'd never experienced. Hypnagogia is the term for it. Sleep paralysis is that stage that you get to right before you fall asleep, where essentially your nervous system is like, okay, fucking don't move. And mine doesn't seem to be very good at that, because I'll do that thing where I'm just about to sleep and then I'm awake. But I had never experienced sleep paralysis when I read this, and I was like, that's really fucked up. I've often wondered about, like, you know, the stories of getting abducted by aliens are always like, well, I was in my bed in the double wide, and all of a sudden I couldn't move. I felt myself unable to move. And then I felt a hand, and I felt myself being lifted up and taken in and out, and I went into my yard, and then I went up into the ship, and it was glorious, and they took me to Alpha Zabublia, and they put things in my bum, and they did science experiments and sex things on me. And Father Mike, I felt a hand. Yeah. And what this is this condition. So the paralysis part is part of our brain's natural processing that says, okay, we're about to fall asleep. Paralyze, don't move. And then when we're in that stage between sleep and wakefulness, hypnagogia can be a thing that we experience. And after reading his book, I had this experience where I was in bed was when I was living with Karina. I was in bed, and she's asleep beside me, and I'm lying there almost asleep, and all of a sudden, I couldn't fucking move. And I felt a hand, like a cold hand on my leg, move slowly up. And I'm struggling. I'm struggling trying to turn my head, but I can't fucking move. And it was terrifying. And I could feel this thing's hand sliding slowly over me. And it was like, and my brain was like, you know what this is. You know what this is. You read that Carl Sagan book. This is sleep paralysis, then hypnagogia. There's nothing that's coming to kill you. You're fine. And the other part of my brain is like, monsters. And it was fucking terrifying. And it's happened a few times since then. But yeah, that's just, an example of how science can help us. Because at least part of my brain was like, I'm not getting kidnapped by aliens. Or having a Jesus man come down from heaven with his flappy wings and touch me in my nethers. Father Mike, I found your hand, Father Mike. There's a whole thing in there about a woman who claimed that the local priest had been dressing up like God and had been raping her because she would have these every night she would go to sleep and she couldn't move because of how he had bewitched her, and he would touch her while she slept, and she was fucking dreaming. Lol. Yeah, hypnagogia. It's a fun little bitch. I find like the whole thing is just phenomenally weird and interesting and cool. But definitely like read Sagan. Sagan's books are so good. Watch Cosmos, like the version that Carl Sagan put out. I should see, like, if it's on YouTube, maybe we'll do that as a series where we'll just watch, like, hang on, let's just check. Carl Sagan Cosmos. Yeah, looks like the entire fucking thing. View full playlist. Yeah. Episode 1, episode 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. So it doesn't look like the whole thing is on this chat, but yeah, there's probably, I would assume I could find all or close to all of Cosmos on here. Maybe not. I don't know. If not, like I said, I've got it pirated. We can do it. We just don't tell YouTube we're doing it. Just kidding, YouTube. Don't TOS me. Fuck. That would be my life right there. Getting sued for sharing Sagan. Okay, can we talk about Sylvia Scam Artist Brown? Sylvia Brown. Is that the psychic? Sylvia Brown? American author. Yeah, medium with psychic ninja powers. Yes, yeah, we can totally talk about it. I don't know much about her because I genuinely skeeved both her and the shows that she would generally wind up on, Montel and Larry King and shit like that. So I didn't watch a lot of Sylvia Brown, but I'm familiar with her. If I'm not mistaken, she was like a psychic who would do the like predictions about like, oh yeah, Bert and Lonnie, they're gonna be together forever. Again, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that. Yeah, we absolutely can. If you want, like on our Discord, you can always just send me some links to so I can bone up a little bit. But yeah, she was definitely a scammer. I'm thinking for next week, for the documentary. Apparently some of her shit had come true. You know what? If you throw enough shit at a wall, some of it's gonna stick. Nostradamus is like not Nostradamus. Yeah, Nostradamus. Yeah, is the best example of this. You can put enough time in and be like, oh my god, some of his predictions are absolutely true. That doesn't mean they're all true, or that remotely, that he had any kind of special insight. It just means that we can draw those correlations. Anyways, for next week, I was thinking about why do I have these in? I'm not listening to them right now. I was thinking about Marjo. If you're familiar with Marjo, I think it's probably something that if you're familiar with it, you'll be like, yeah, dude, Marjo. If you aren't familiar with it, then you will shortly be all, yeah, dude, Marjo. Let me tell you a little bit about Marjo so that we're hyping the next week. Marjo Gortner is a real person. And he was, essentially, when he was 4 years old, he was the youngest preacher to ever marry a couple. Now, the name Marjo comes from Mary and Joseph. Marjo. And he's like legitimately, he was like 4 years old, and he was like an ordained minister in the Baptist faith in the South, marrying people and doing, going on tent revivals and shit like that back in the day. And he was raised in this ridiculously cruel fashion where his mom was like his puppet master. Both his parents did this to him. They wanted him. This was a cash cow for them. So they had their child and raised him to be a little preacher. And he would give, and he talks about this in the movie, he would give sermons, and his mom would, off camera, he'd be on camera and he'd be like, let me tell you about the Lord and the devil and stuff. And she'd go like this. And that was a symbol to like, okay, now we're going to talk more about the devil. Or, she does one of these and it's like, okay, bring it back on down to the people. Or like she was coaching him on the things to say. And he was just parroting this shit. So Marjo, this is a documentary that he made. Basically, his parents left him. And when he was no longer bringing in the big bucks, his parents just threw him away. And he wound up getting, he stayed afloat by doing the religion thing. And when he was about 16 years old, he met this girl who he was living with, who was an older woman, which isn't creepy at all. It was, in the hippie days. She took him in essentially, and she taught him, or like they would live together, and he would, like, when they needed money, he would just go on a little Southern Baptist revival, and and it was all about fleecing the crowd. He had no faith of his own. And then he had this crisis of conscience where he realized, like, he was a terrible person doing terrible things, and so he needed to do better. So he made this documentary as a means to expose that Southern Baptist evangelical monstrosity for what it was. So he convinced all these other preachers that they were going to do this great big, like, oh, we're going to do a revival and we'll televise it. We'll make video cassettes that people can buy, and it'll be even more money because it's all one big fucking grift. When really what he was doing was convincing them to allow this film crew in to expose them. Now the movie, and I can't remember, let me just check. I believe it was 1972. Marjo. Yeah, 1972, the movie won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. The key, let me just share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at here. Browser share. So Marjo, 1972 American film produced and directed by Howard Smith and Sarah Kernigan, about the life of evangelist Marjo Gortner, won the 1972 Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. Release is the key here. At the time of the film's release, it generated considerable press, but the movie was not shown widely in theaters in the southern United States. The distributor feared adverse reaction to the film in the Bible Belt, so it was not shown any further south than Des Moines, Iowa. And it was lost. Although released on VHS, the film had long been out of print and had deteriorated. It was assumed to be completely gone, actually. In 2002, the negative and other elements were found in a vault in New York City. The Academy Film Archive preserved Marjo in 2005, and the IFC Center showed Marjo as the closing film in a series of documentaries called Stranger Than Fiction. The restored film has been released on DVD and streaming services. So it's actually on YouTube, and we can watch it together. And it's a really, really interesting film because it's it's an honest look at the grift. Similar in a sense to, what was it, Leap of Faith, the Steve Martin movie, which was also a really good movie, but was totally fictional. I think it was based on Uri Geller or whatever that dude's name was, but like, you know, based on, they couldn't make it a movie about him, but definitely showing the grift of the religious fervor marketing scam. Marjo is unique in that this is a person who was one of the grifters who wanted to expose it, and I really enjoyed it for that. Kevin Copeland becomes the devil on stage could be a good one too. So I know Kenneth Copeland. Is there a movie or a, like, thing about him that I haven't seen that? Copeland I'm very familiar with, and I would say Copeland is like the current version of find a link, put it in Discord, that'd be awesome. He's the current version of Uri Geller, who was the guy that would bend spoons with his mind, and then the Amazing Randy proved that he was full of shit. Was that Geller? Hang on, I might be mixing my non-metaphors. Uri Geller, Israeli British illusionist, spoon bending and other illusions, scientific testing. Geller's performances. A study was commissioned by the United States Defense Intelligence Agency as part of the Stargate project. I can't think of there. There was actually the Amazing Randy and Uri Geller. This should give me something. The Truth About Uri Geller. There's a book by James Randi. I didn't know that. Geller filed a one. I should probably share my screen so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Randy exposed him on Carson. So this is the book that Randy made, The Magic of Uri Geller, as revealed by the Amazing Randy. Geller filed a $15 million lawsuit against Randy and the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal over slander concerning Randy's statements that Geller had tricked even reputable scientists with tricks that are the kind that used to be on the back of cereal boxes when I was a kid. I really enjoyed the Amazing Randy, his stuff. He actually had a TV show in Britain that was a regular thing, where he would take people who made outrageous claims, and he had $1 million prize if they could prove it, and they never did, which was a thing with the JREF and the James Randi Foundation, Educational Foundation, whatever it was called. They would put up $1 million and say, prove something in reasonable scientific circumstances, and if you can prove your claim of witchcraft or psychic powers or whatever, we'll give you the money, and they never did. JREF is the only reason Penn isn't a complete turd. Also, though, the JREF, Randy, I don't know if he was good or bad. I was kind of stepping away from organized atheism and skepticism at the time that of his death. I loved the story that he told about how every morning he would get up and take a recipe card, and he would write on it, "My name is James the Amazing Randy. Today is whatever the date, and today I have seen that today is the day that I will die." And he put it in his inside coat pocket. And he did that every single day. And he's like, eventually I'm going to die. And someone's going to find my body, and they're going to find this card and be like, "Oh my God, the Amazing Randy's final great prediction." But he talked about it on TV. He loved his TED Talk. I don't think I've ever seen James Randi's TED Talk. I should do that. I'll tell you my favorite TED Talk. This is, again, off topic, but, I'm bouncing around doing tangents, which is what I do. My favorite TED Talk is a guy named Xander. Can't think of it. Xander something else. Benjamin Xander. He is a conductor for orchestras, And his whole TED Talk was about how everyone loves classical music. And he's like, I know you don't think that. There's 4 kinds of people. There's people who, you know, hate classical music, just hate everything about it. And then there's people who like, you know, if it's on, whatever. And then there's people who, you know, will put it on at the end of a hard day and put it on, you know, as a, you know, have a glass of wine. And then there's those that love it. And he's like, you know, most classical music aficionados and the people in that world will look at it and be like, you know, there's 4% of people who truly love classical music. How do we get that to 4.1? And he's like, that's the worst perspective. That's the worst perspective. I have to go into this with the assumption that everybody loves classical music. And then prove it to them. And that was what his TED Talk was all about. And it was actually really interesting. And there's an inspiring story in the middle of it about, like, you know, puppies and polio or something. I don't fucking remember, but it was really good. It's on homeopathy, quackery, and fraud. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what James Randi would be talking about. Anyways, what I was saying about him is I know that after his death, whoever it was that became president of the JREF after him, like immediately was embroiled in the usual scandal of you know, oh yeah, I worked with that guy and he was all Captain Diddly Fingers. Organized skepticism and atheism were a giant letdown for me. As a kid who was like, I became an atheist a little while before Dawkins and what do we got here? We got various intelligent people. I'm none of them. Okay, that's okay. But I see Mao and Lenin and Karl Marx and I think that's Che Guevara, but I can't tell, and I'm not 100%. I'm not good at theory. I don't know all the things. I'm not Vosh. Fuck, where was I going? I don't remember. It was probably cool. Fidel Castro. Oh my God, Fidel. Everyone's all like, oh my God, Cuba, they're rebelling in the streets right now. And then you listen to the people in the streets and they're like, we're not satisfied with the way COVID worked. And we're kind of not okay with the fact that our economy is in ruins. And everyone's like, see, communism doesn't work. And it's like, well, didn't we have the same fucking protests here in Canada, here in the United States? Didn't that happen? I think it did. And the infamous Yellow Parenti. I don't know Yellow Parenti. Yeah, I don't know who that is. Although, with the tiny little icon I'm looking at, he kind of looks like a yellow. What was the guy from Tool Time? Not Tim Taylor, but his buddy that did the work. I'm sure it's not that. Michael Parenti. I don't know him. I've never read Michael Parenti stuff. I'm a proud leftist and a libertarian socialist, but I am not. Al Borland, yes, Al Borland. Well played, Dr. Awesome DBM. Yeah, I don't read a lot of theory. I tried to when I was younger. I read, I think I read Das Kapital, or at least I probably read parts of it, and then was like, this is boring. I'm going to read porn. And I read the Wealth of Nations, which taught me that Adam Smith had a really interesting take on a system that has nothing to do with the capitalism we live in. And I find it hilarious when people quote Smith and they're like, oh yeah, you know, he's talking about a fucking factory that makes pins in a world where we have global multinationals. Like, they're not the same thing. And what he described isn't applicable. It doesn't scale up like that. Highly recommend Black Shirts and Reds. I'm going to put that on my list of stuff. Which actually, I don't have a list of stuff, so I'm going to make a list of stuff right now real quick. Black Shirts and Reds. And Reds, I'm assuming that's by Michael Parenti. Because I do think it's important to, you know, especially as a leftist prick with a YouTube channel, or YouTube, Twitch, whatever the fuck. it's probably worth my time to put a little effort in and bone up on some of the theory, because eventually someone's going to come into my chat and be like all snarky and go, "Or you don't know theory," and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know theory. And then they catch you, like some big papa fascist prick is going to be like, "Oh, you haven't read this one sentence, the only one that I know? I'm a better leftist than you." And then I have to spray him with mace, and that's terrible. No one wants that. Not that I do debates. I'm not a debate bro. Although we just watched a debate, so I'm like a debate bro fan, but just not a debate bro. Yeah, I think that, you know, I probably owe it to myself to do some more studying on theory. I ran into this spot. I don't know what the fuck I just put my fingers in. It was on my computer and it was sticky. That's probably not a good sign. Yeah, I tried really hard to, like, not just politics, but like I read Charles Dickens, and I read and I hate every second of reading Charles Dickens. I just want to go on the record. Charles Dickens, that's like a punitive measure. If you want to really abolish the prison system, make it so that everyone has to read Charles Dickens' entire catalog every time they do something bad, crime will end. Both hands on the keyboard. So I think it was chocolate, because I bought like some Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm pretty sure like a piece of chocolate landed. Nope, that's semen. Sorry. But yeah, so Dickens, I read Tolstoy, did not enjoy Tolstoy. I read Dostoevsky. I read The Idiot and really loved it, which is why I read Tolstoy. And in fact, I was enjoying, like, so I was reading War and Peace, and War and Peace is like, it's like a kind of a half-assed soap opera with like a bunch of characters, and all the characters have 3 different names, but I was keeping it all together and I was getting through it, and I was like, okay, I'm reading War and Peace. It's going to be okay. And at the time, the transit strike happened, and all of a sudden, Dickens hurts my soul. Yes, Dickens is terrible. So I got halfway through, and then the transit strike hit, and it was my book that I kept in my going to work bag. So I had my like bathroom book, and I had my going to bed book, and I had my, you know, whatever the fuck else book. So because I wasn't taking the train, I wasn't bringing that bag with me. So I didn't read War and Peace for like 4 months or something like this. And then I was like, oh, I'm back on the train. Yay, transit strike's over. And I pull out War and Peace. I'm like, oh, right on. Where was I again? Who in the fuck? And, it, you know, there's like 500 characters with 3 different names each. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. So it's like, okay, I'll start it over. I started over, and I was like, this is not happening. There is no way I'm doing this. So I got rid of it. I do own Anna Karenina. I have not read it. I bought it at the same time I bought the War and Peace, and it just turned me off. I read the Odyssey and the Iliad so that I can be all like flouncy and be like, oh yes, I know Homo. War and Peace made me want to punch babies. It was so boring to me. Yeah, it was really... It kind of has just like... It's like a crappy soap opera from the, you know, that time in Russian history. So there's a certain charm to it, I found, but like it wasn't that good, and I didn't feel bad about not finishing it. I used to really like hate the idea of not finishing books, but in the case of War and Peace, I just didn't feel like it was adding any value to my life. It was something that I was doing to pass the time on the bus going to work. And I'm okay with that. I really loved Dostoevsky's The Idiot. I read others of his stuff and wasn't quite as impressed, but I certainly am not well versed in any of this. A Mole in God's Eye and Footfall by Niven and Pornell. I don't know either of those. Oh, A Mote in God's Eye. I Am Canadian. Are you suggesting that I read those? Because I will add them to my list that I just created. The last serious book I read, I got on a real Hemingway kick, and I really enjoy Ernest Hemingway, by Niven and Pornell. Okay, they're on the list. I Am Canadian. Yeah, I got on this Hemingway kick. I had read The Old Man and the Sea quite a long time before and enjoyed it quite a bit, but I hadn't read any more. And then, honest answer, there was a girl who was like, oh, I love Hemingway. And I was like, I also love Hemingway. So I had to read Hemingway, and I read a bunch of his stuff, and I really enjoyed it. I've been guilty, though, of being that guy that's like, oh, yeah, I love to read, and I haven't read much in the last little while. So I recently bought a couple of books, actually, by my buddy, Mr. Plow's wife, Erin Plow. Mr. Plow was a musician that I used to play shows with all the time, he lived in Vancouver, and he would come through all the time. And then he's moved to Portland, and he's not really doing a lot of music these days, so I haven't seen him in forever. But his wife, and he and his wife wrote the first book together, and then she's got some other books that she's put out. But the book that they wrote together is his story of growing up and getting a job in, I think it was his family's, it's called Family Business, his family's mortuary. So he was like driving around picking up dead bodies, and at the same time finding his way into the punk rock world. And so it was a really cool concept for a book. So I haven't fucking read it because I got it and then I'm fucking lazy. So I need to kick my ass and do more reading. But and now I have a list, so that's good. And Bender has a list. So yes, the A Mote in God's Eye and Footfall are both on my list. Or The Mote in God's Eye. Oh, The Mote in... I thought it was A Mote in God's Eye. Now I have to edit my list. That's one of my more favoriter things that Christians say is when they talk about, they say, when you judge someone, don't judge a person by the mote in their eye when you have a log in yours, wookity. And generally speaking, they follow that up by judging people. That's my experience. But I do like that concept of understanding that we shouldn't be judging people for the little things that's wrong with them when there's giant things wrong with us. But I'm sure that the book is not just like one big retelling of that story over and over again, because that would be pretty boring. But yeah, I went on this, early in I read a whole pile of like philosophy. I read Eastern philosophy. I read most of the Quran. Again, it was one of those like halfway through, and I was like, do I need to keep going? I don't feel like I do. I didn't enjoy it. I understand the people who are moved by it and the beautiful poetry. I didn't get any of that out of it. I was just like, this is just a religious book, and it's not doing anything for me. But wanted to go back to doing Farley Mowat. Read his stuff a lot when I was young and want to revisit it, see if it's as good as I remember. I haven't read Farley Mowat since like high school, which, obviously 3 or 4 years. But I really enjoyed Farley Mowat, and I felt kind of ripped off when I heard that Never Cry Wolf was like a setup. He didn't actually, it wasn't based on truth. He was just writing it as, I get it, he was writing it to try and draw attention and awareness and protection for wolves, but it's not a true story. It kind of reminds me of the Disney, the Mutual of Omaha thing, where they were like doing all of the stuff with animals, and like as a kid I watched Mutual of Omaha, and then you later find out that like they would find a zebra and like grab it and then drag it to some watering hole where there's a lion, and they're like, okay, go. And then to make matters worse was the fucking lemmings thing. Stop me if you've heard this one, which you can't because there will be a drag by the time I say it, it'll be done. But yeah, Disney, like, they wanted to film lemmings running off a cliff, and everyone knew that lemmings run off cliffs. So they set up a film crew, and they were waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and it's not happening. And finally, the Disney Corporation was like, just make it fucking happen. So they, like, I think they built a pen and a fire. So these lemmings ran away from the fire, through the pen, over the cliff. And they filmed it, and they're like, look, it's lemmings running off a cliff. And then later, it was revealed that lemmings don't do that. That was just bullshit. And Disney made that happen. They genocided some fucking lemmings as a way to get a good shot. Flowers for Algernon. I remember that book. It's a short story, isn't it? Now that I'm thinking about it. Brilliant concept, though, one way or the other. I've read it, and the idea that you've got the mouse and the guy that are given the magic serum that makes them smarter, if I'm not mistaken, or I might have that wrong. It's been obviously a while. Yeah, short story. When I was writing, I wrote short stories because I didn't have the interest to research, which is a terrible admission. But I would try and write novels because I always wanted to be the great American writer. Even though I'm Canadian, and I would start, and I'd get literally 60 pages in, and I'd finally get to a place where I actually had to put a little effort in and research something, and then that would just sit in a desk until I moved. Pretty sure they made it into a movie as well. Yeah, I'm fairly certain they did. I think we watched it when I was in junior high or something. We read the story and then watched the movie, and I'm pretty sure. But then again, that was 3 or 4 years ago. Or junior high would have been 6 or 7 years ago. I'm fucking 47 years old. There's no way that if junior high was 6 years ago, then I was a real dumb kid. Not that there's anything wrong with being a real dumb kid and spending 40 years in junior high. No judgments against me, because that happened. Hardy. There's some. If I could make a recommendation for you guys, this is a work of fiction, but I love it. So there's an author named Christopher Moore, and I read his the first book of his that I read was a gift from my ex-wife's. We were married at the time. Her mother, who was the worst person on earth, and or still is apparently. She has not died yet, but fingers crossed. Sorry, that's horrible, and I'm a bad person, but I genuinely loathe this human being. She would always get me gifts that were the last thing on earth that I would want, and literally if she could have given me genocide just to see the look on my face, she would have given me genocide. She was just fucking terrible. And My eldest child is on Facebook and said die, comma, and then that person's name, because that's her or their grandmother. So, anyways, this one year, for whatever reason, she bought me a book that was good, and she came in. She hands me this book, and it's called "The Island of the Sequined Love Nun" by Christopher Moore. And it sounded like a stupid title, and I looked at her, and she's like, it's that guy that makes that movie, Bowling for Columbine, Christopher Moore. And I was like, oh, at least she tried. But I had no interest in reading the book. And then when I was pooping one day, as you do, and I finished a book that I was reading, and I didn't have another book within grabbing distance, except for The Island of the Sequined Love Nun. So I picked it up, and it was hilarious and awesome. I'm not a big fan of funny books. I don't do the Hitchhiker's Guide stuff, even though I get that they're wonderful. Just not my vibe. This book was hilarious, and it got me on this love affair with Christopher Moore. So the book that I would recommend is Fool by Christopher Moore. What he did was he came up with the idea of telling the story of King Lear from the perspective of the Black Fool of King Lear, who is one of the most interesting characters, one of the only interesting characters in King Lear. And he portrays him as this sleazy, funny, mostly dangerous mouthpiece kind of character, and it was absolutely charming and wonderful. It's a great book. Christopher Moore in general, and you kind of can't go wrong with his books. But Fool would be my number one recommendation. Second to that would be Lamb, which is subtitled "The Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Best Friend." And is, again, a humorous book about the story of the Jesus Christ. But the 30 years that are missing out of the Bible, or 28 or whatever it is, where he goes from being a teenager to being a man, it's this angel reinvigorates Biff, who was Christ's childhood pal, and who went on the journey with him to learn all of the things that would be used in his ministry. And it's not a religious book. It's definitely not a religious book, and hilarious. And there's some great moments in it. So, anyways, yeah, that would be my suggestion, Christopher Moore. Also, Die, Deb. that would be the grandmother, or my ex-mother-in-law. Just terrible. The nice thing about that person was that I learned what a narcissistic abuser was, and that has served me well in life. But yeah, that's just some bitterness on my end, little tiny little bit. Well, I think, it's just about 10 p.m. and I think it's going to be time for me to call it a night. I want to say thanks to those that are joined the stream. That was awesome. If you're not already following or subbing or whatever, please do. It's always appreciated. I am like the world's smallest streamer. I have like 68, I think, subs on YouTube, and like 29 or something on Twitch, or followers on Twitch. I'm nobody, but I talk a lot, and it's fun, and we have good conversations. So please do feel free to come back, follow, like, subscribe, share, whatever. And good night to all of you. You know me from Calgary Metal. I probably know you from Calgary Metal. I just don't know what your real people name is. But yes, fucking horns up, brother. All right, yeah. So I'm gonna call it a night. I hope to see everyone again soon. And next week we'll look through Marjo, and we'll enjoy the fuck out of that. And if you're bored on a Saturday early afternoon, on Saturday I'll be doing live stream. And I'm hoping, if I can find time between then and now, I want to go through the campaign platform of a very scary individual here in Calgary, whose last name is Hallelujah. I think it's like John Hallelujah or something. But yeah, definitely will be an interesting read. Later, nerds. Thanks for the stream. My pleasure. Good night, all. And I'm going to call it a night. Thank you, guys.